Same. I also started my local just like a little bit too early. So
no, it's the
sorry,
thing where
Devin.
Braz doesn't tell us when we're recording, and then he just goes.
Yeah, and it's
and
just
normally we're talking about dicks and balls on the air.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to drive anyone off by talking about dicks and balls on the air, though.
No.
Hey, but like, call me JFK's presidential protective detail because I'm operating on about an hour of sleep in the last 24.
What?
I'm
Yes.
excited. I just flew in from Love Field, and boy, is the back of my head tired. It's a bonus episode.
It's a
Call me
bonus
JFK
episode.
the way I be getting that head.
It's called the bonus episode.
Why are you yelling?
I'm not.
He just
God
does
damn
this.
it.
You are literally yelling.
Yeah, I was
That's
about
just
to
the
say.
JFK impression is always 10 decibels higher than my normal speaking voice, and I'm sorry.
Mm.
It's okay.
We choose to blow out the speakers in this decade and do the other things.
God, because it is easy.
All right.
All right.
You know who we are.
Yeah, so you know who we are. We are joined, however, once again by our senior Italian correspondent, Noah. How's it going, Noah?
Thank you. It's going great. I think I'm also the senior conspiracy theorist correspondent.
That's right. And at the intersection of Italian-X identity and conspiracy theory lies the death of America's most Bostonian president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
That's right. You also needed somebody to pronounce like all the Cuban names that pop up in this.
Yes. Yeah. Now,
As a Puerto Rican, I will allow it.
So my feeling was I'm going to do this for fun because I got very interested in it. And we're going to have an exquisitely researched and presented episode.
And then what happened?
That's going to silence the doubters. That's going to really, put us up there as serious podcasters.
Yes.
I made about 20 slides, fell asleep, kind of forgot about it for the next week and a half. And now I'm at the opposite end of that pendulum where I haven't slept very much and I'm tired as hell. And we're going to find out who killed JFK. We're going to solve it tonight in this very room, like that episode of Bones.
That's right.
Yeah, but we've got the butler did it. We've got his head just did that. We've got Governor Connolly spun around with a little derringer.
We've got JFK. JFK was gay as fuck for sleeping on Jackie's fat ass.
JFK was killed by autocentric design.
Oh, actually, my dad had one that he told me explicitly.
I have a really funny joke first, which is picture of Olaf Palme's dead ass corpse. This kind of smart mixed-use walkable urbanism is actually illegal to build in many American cities.
Well, my dad had one that he explicitly told me I had to say on air, which is that JFK was killed because he once said that North Carolina barbecue, which is mustard and pork based, was better than Texas barbecue, which is tomato and beef based, and that
they will kill your ass for that.
Therefore, Lee Harvey Oswald did it for all Texans.
That sounds about right. I can believe that one. That's my chosen theory now. Yeah.
Case closed.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Great episode, everyone.
Convinced.
Thank you for the Patreon dollars.
Bye.
No, I'll lay my cards on the table here. I've always been sort of a conspiracy non-theorist with JFK. Of like every other conspiracy theory has made at least some impact on me. But day one, I've always felt, the Warren Commission is pretty much accurate in every material respect. It's just like a lone whack job. Yeah. Sorry, that's very ableist language of me.
Yes.
A lone neurodivergent man mail-ordered a rifle and made the president of the United States suddenly very neurodivergent.
He ran out of spoons that day. What can I say?
I will say too, I'm not I'm sort of with Alice on this one. I believe the Warren Commission, as I believe the 9/11 Commission reports, are what you might say incomplete but not inaccurate.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe that there are things withheld from the public that are not, they're embarrassing.
It's contextually inaccurate, but it's not like materially. Yeah.
Right. That's, and that is bad. Obviously, I like that's not a thing I fan of. Like full disclosure, or why are we bothering here? But yeah, I would say that like I'm more or less in agreement with that. I know that we're going to get some pretty angry hate mail, to which I say we already took your fucking money.
Well, the thing is, right, I genuinely tried, and I engaged with good faith, and I did a Twitter post, which you may have seen, which
I saw
was,
that.
I've never believed in a conspiracy to assassinate JFK. Changed my mind, genuinely, like unironic Steven Crowder meme. Changed my mind, and no one did it. No one like raised any questions that I couldn't satisfy myself about. But so we'll get there though.
I mean, my thing is basically like, you're all wrong, and obviously the CIA did it all. And case closed.
Kill his mic. Kill his ass.
We were just to inform you, Nora has been taken to a black site.
Yeah, Justin, what do you think about JFK conspiracies?
I have to agree with the barbecue theory.
Oh God.
Yeah,
it's right.
Okay.
My dad solved the mystery. Thank you, Brian.
But first,
I've also believed on some level that like I also, this is actually as conspiratorial as I'll go, that I don't believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone throughout the process, but I believe he acted alone on that day.
The sort of the Libra theory, where like somebody put him in that window.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking earlier, but I am kind of with Liam on this, in the sense that like it goes back to my point that I think I made on the Ustica episode about like domestic gladio, and like, things being allowed to happen versus like really directly interfering in events.
Which is like my theory, and I think the most sort of agreed upon explanation of 9/11 is that it was allowed to happen.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
The Looming Tower, so on and so forth. Organizational malfeasance, we'll call it.
Alice, you said someone put him in that window, and I just imagined someone rolling up with like a man lift and just like putting it up against the book depository. Yeah.
Right. Didn't use any of the like
how did the Secret Service miss that one? My God.
Is that OSHA compliant?
We'll get into how they basically could have done, and the Secret Service would have missed it. But first, we must ask ourselves the question: what is a JFK?
What is the integrity of the back of the head?
Yeah, who are these freaks? Look at these motherfuckers, man. This is a political dynasty.
I think my grandmother Agnes had this exact picture in her living room.
That's
terrifying.
Creepy. Sorry.
Listen.
So the Kennedys were a Boston Irish American political dynasty founded by this guy in the middle, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., who he did some stuff. We got a whole slide about that. He had some kids, and he raised those kids with the sole aim of making one of them president of the United States, which he got his way on that. They're a weird family, man. Like, sort of, never like too Catholic and too Irish to ever really be that beloved of the WASPs, but like at the same time able to kind of move in those circles and to get to like Harvard. And if you ever read JFK's Harvard application essay, it's hysterical because it's about two sentences.
Please let me into Harvard. I believe I'd be good at it.
Yeah, and they did. Yeah,
because he's a WASP passing.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of anti-Catholic sentiment, anti-Irish sentiment.
But the thing is that all of these guys were directly controlled by the Pope from the Vatican.
Yeah, me too. I got
I
got the little microchip implanted. That's what happens at confirmation. That's the part they don't tell you about.
It's really weird because sometimes I'll touch the transponder or whatever, and it'll just say back Judenschwein. don't like that part so much.
You ever had a communion wafer like stick to the roof of your mouth? That's the microchip going in. Happens to the best of us.
Okay, get this, Catholic. Check this shit out. Catholic, but with an X instead of the first A. Gangstolic.
All right, so where does this guy Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. come from? Next slide.
Brookline.
Yeah, but also, like, how does he make his money? Was he like, how does he send all of his kids to shitty Harvard? Yeah.
Well, so first he makes his money like.
Boston College is a Jesuit Ivy, but that's why no one in my family went there.
Didn't like those wet mouth sounds. A lot of wet mouth sounds there.
Yeah. What are you gonna do, right?
It's a very wet mouth dynasty, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they do have the Irish Catholics have the wettest mouths, just generally.
I can't help this. Actually, JFK's grandfather went to. Honey Fitz did end up going to BC, but
the Honey Fitz is gonna stick with me.
Yeah, insane.
I don't know what you want me to do.
Expunge him like Stalin with all those people that were in photos with him. So, basically, to my knowledge, Joe P. Kennedy, I mean, the family already had some money and some sort of political dynasty bona fides, but he made money initially as assistant general manager of a Bethlehem steel plant, where he met then Assistant Navy Secretary Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Then he got very lucky with the crash, with the stock market crash, and then used the money that he got from that to invest in real estate. And then he put together RKO, from consolidating a series of Hollywood studios. And RKO used to be a big Hollywood studio. So as a Hollywood man myself, we salute our studio heads and
critical support for Joseph P. Kennedy.
And then he obtained the exclusive rights to distribute Scotch in America, Scotch whiskey. And the thing about it is, this leads people to be like, oh, well, he was bootlegging, but there's not real proof of that. So
yeah, it's been like
allegedly,
sort of a long time slur against him. It's like, it's kind of like getting Al Capone on tax evasion, but also you made up the thing about tax evasion. Like of all of the various nefarious crimes you had to do to be any rich person in the 1930s, but especially
the head
like,
of RKO.
Yeah, the head of a Hollywood studio in the 30s to be like, he was bootlegging. No,
amount of illegal abortions
to comprise the kind of the illegality that this guy was responsible for, probably.
You can only get mad about cool crimes.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and the thing about it is, I think we have to unfortunately give critical support to Joe P. Kennedy because of the merchandise mart, which was built and owned by the Kennedys. And when we have the communist revolution, will be our future palace of the Soviets, because look at that motherfucker on the right.
Yeah, needs a big like coat of arms dangled down the middle, sort of like pediment thing.
I think you'd have issues with the floor plates is the only problem. You couldn't have like a big assembly hall in there.
I guess. Well, yeah, I guess
It's
that's
a good
true,
building.
but it is. I mean, look at it; it rules. It was the largest building in the world for a little bit, if I remember correctly, and also it had still has its own zip code. It's one of the coolest buildings in Chicago. And so we have to unfortunately hand it to one of the worst men in America at the time.
I think it's still used for its original purpose, right? There's still like furniture showrooms in there that you can just walk in and that's pretty cool.
There are, yep.
So our boy Joseph P., he has innumerable children because Catholics, right? He has some daughters who he has lobotomized.
It's true.
Just fuck around. And he has his eldest son, next slide please, his golden boy, really fucked up, weird looking man. This would be Joseph P. Kennedy Jr., and this was the guy who was supposed to be president.
Yes.
This guy with this face.
Yeah.
The guy who looks like someone fucking like AI generated JFK.
No, this guy looks like he's a comedian that exclusively works with puppets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Slurs every show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so as part of being president, right, you gotta when World War II happens, that means you gotta go be in World War II and burnish your credentials a little bit. You can't be like Richard Nixon and just like hustle poker in the South Pacific. You have to be a war hero. So this guy's a younger brother, John. He does that in the Navy, but Joseph Jr., he joins the Air Force, the Army Air Forces. Where in perhaps one of those wrinkles of American history, he is killed in an attempted drone strike.
Yeah. America's first drone strike death.
Yeah, genuinely, because there was this program where in order to do a drone at this point, what you had to do is put a shitload of explosives on a B-25 Liberator bomber, seen here, have a flight crew on it to take it off, aim it in the general direction of occupied France, and then parachute out, and then you could remote control it and like fly it into something. And 9/11, this fucking like
if you guys ever played Battlefield 2, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, 100%. It's like throwing all the C4 onto the Jeep, that kind of thing.
And if you remember our previous episode on Nazi super weapons, this was of course an attempted drone strike at the Nazis' multi-chambered gun that didn't really work that good.
Yes, the V3 at Mimoyak, yeah. And as we said on that thing, Joseph P. Kennedy, he like pilots this drone full of explosives, does not get out in time because the thing just detonates early over southeast England and just atomizes him and his guys. So,
man, I'm always on this podcast to talk about weird air disasters where planes just blow up and change the course.
Know your place, Noah.
It's good.
Genuinely surprised that him being he's supposed to be the next president, right? But he volunteers for this insanely stupid and dangerous mission.
Well, maybe it's kind of a death or glory thing, and it turned out to be death.
It turned out to be death.
Yeah, they're not too bright as a family in some circumstances.
So kind of lacking in self-preservation instincts.
Well, at least he didn't literally kill a woman, so he's doing better than somebody else.
Hey! Oh, I got a bet. No, we'll tell that joke later in the podcast. All right. I'll just tell it now. So there I was in high school, and I was dating, name redacted, and
such a pretty name.
Of the Brookline Redacted?
You were dating Mary Jo Kopechne. Yep.
Yes. And what happened was I did things of the physically intimate nature, and then we had a huge fight, and my dad suggested, and I'm quoting directly here, give her the old Teddy Kennedy. Mom, if you're listening to this, in his defense, he was right.
Got right down. Okay. So Joseph Jr. is now gardening mulch. What are you, as a sort of studio tyrant who wants your son to be president, to do? Well, you get your second son.
Next son.
Next one. You're up.
Crusader Kings rules, baby.
That's right. His stats aren't as good. But you get John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
Tales of your misdeeds are told from Ireland to Cathay.
Yeah. you get him elected president. It's sometimes also suggested that you do this by buying it from the mob. That you get the mob to like stuff ballot boxes in some key constituencies to allow him to become president.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure how true that is. I also don't know how much it matters, but
that's just how you did it back then.
Yeah, I think the accusation was Illinois, so I completely believe it as somebody from Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. Although I think at that point you pretty much had to cheat to win Illinois in any direction.
That's right.
So JFK
winning over the crucial deceased demographic.
Yeah. So JFK becomes president, and his immediate concern is becoming president again, getting reelected, because it's a cool system, democracy, and it makes you have the right priorities as you're a leader. So he wants to get another 4 years, and it's sort of like there's a cultural valence here, right? In that he's the youngest president for a long time, and he's also sexy, apparently. People go nuts for like him and his wife, Jackie.
Jackie is a smoke show. Yes. And okay, good. I'm taking over the podcast now. This is going to be
you're talking
an
about
hour and a half.
This
is going to be an
that Grace Kelly
It's going to
is
get
walking
worse,
around
where I talk about that Jill Biden could get it.
Okay. Welcome to Objectifying Women Hour on Well, There's Your Problem podcast.
Look at the time. I turned to my big clock that says objectify women at every hour marker.
Jill Biden is a doctor.
I am a faggot. And
Ross, you and I barely graduated college, man. She has a doctorate. Jill Biden could get it. I don't know what's wrong with this position.
In terms of Jacqueline Kennedy, Onassis Bouvier, the sole thing that I think about is that tweet, which is like, I bet JFK had to feed her bacon bits throughout the day to keep her calm.
God damn it. As a faggot, I simply cannot comment on this at all. And
that photo of Jackie Kennedy and Jack Kennedy campaigning in Wisconsin in 1960, Jackie Kennedy could have gotten it. Absolutely, without question.
So some people like him, some people really don't like him. He's a very divisive president in that way. And he makes a lot of enemies in his first term. And okay, we're gonna go through those enemies right now. Enemies like who? Next slide, please.
Oh boy, Alan
Handsome
Dulles.
fellow.
Yes.
Mercy for the Dulles brothers.
Please don't.
God.
These suit and tie motherfuckers. So
stay behind Nazi shit show courtesy of
courtesy of the Dulles brothers and a bunch of former Nazis. Yeah,
exactly.
Welcome to Washington Dulles International Airport.
I fucking hate that airport. I would rather fly out of Reagan.
So essentially, like, the US doesn't have a centralized intelligence operation until the Second World War, when it's forced to form one in a hurry. In the form of the Office of Strategic Services. Then a bunch of post-war fuckery happens, and it all gets eaten largely by the pet project of these two, the Central Intelligence Agency.
Alice, sorry, on the left is Andy McCone.
Okay.
That's not a Dulles brother. That's Andy McCone on the left.
Well, why does he look so much like Alan Dulles? Is my question.
Because all of these people were grown in vats.
They all look the same. They got the Himmler glasses. They got the 1,000-yard stare. I've actually seen a polycule made up of only these dudes.
Yeah, it's called the
just
CIA.
all rubbing together under the fucking temple at Yale. Yeah.
See, before you had the CIA, you had a decentralized intelligence agency, sort of running along anarchist principles. That's why I never got anything done.
I mean,
you need a vanguardist operation.
I genuinely think
spent 3/4 of the day arguing over who's supposed to do the dishes.
Langley DSA has a very strong steering committee.
At the time of the Zimmerman telegram, the Secretary of State said that they didn't spy on diplomatic communications because gentlemen don't read each other's mail.
I like it.
There was a time when having a sort of federal intelligence agency was unthinkable. Not so now, and not so after 1945. So these,
I will say though that for comparison, and I don't know its original role, but MI6 is founded in 1909.
Oh yeah, and MI6 is I don't actually know the history of SIS that well, but we were founding shit specifically as the special Irish branch or whatever, at the start of the 20th century.
Right. And there's stuff that there have been. This would actually be a really good episode about there has been espionage for many years. But what the CIA is doing here during the Cold War is espionage, but also just not jack shit, because that implies that they're doing nothing. They're doing
getting
bad shit.
weird with it. In this, and actually, this is a legacy of the Second World War, because
nation building, but worse.
What the OSS was very into at the same time as the British SOE, which required a whole different sort of agency, so foreign was it to the existing intelligence community of Britain, was unconventional warfare, ungentlemanly weird shit, which included arming a bunch of partisans, not asking what those partisans' politics were too much, blowing up bits of infrastructure, stuff like this. And the CIA has always existed in sort of intention and dialectic, as a communist agency is, between these two ideas of you don't make a lot of noise, you sit and you watch and you observe and report, and you make a lot of noise and you blow shit up and you hurt people, right? And it's always been sort of a balancing act.
It's also There's a book I would recommend called Winston Churchill's Toy Shop.
Yes.
That I read about military intelligence. The SOE is a really fascinating one for those of you who are like me and have a death wish and are therefore
it's book hour. If you want to read a really good book about SOE, I recommend Leo Marx Between Silk and Cyanide.
Oh, terrific.
I just want to say we all are of sound mind and body. Our hyoid bones are unbroken. We are not having dark thoughts. And I keep looking at houses in the Falklands, but just for fun, never to move there.
So these guys, these suit and tie motherfuckers, are possessed of a vision in which the communists teach people to read or whatever, and therefore that knocks over a domino. They teach them to read in another country,
so in another country. Children, right?
The unstoppable tide of global communism has to be stemmed by a bunch of guys who did like a bunch of weird.
It worked so good. That's why the Soviet Union still exists.
That's
job,
right,
assholes.
babe. No, they have to stop it, and the only people that can stop it are a bunch of like weird people who had weird homosexual orgies at Harvard and look like.
Hey, don't forget the skull fucking. And I mean that
skull fucking. They're getting pissed on by your dad at Yale.
David Cameron style shenanigans, things of that nature.
Yes.
So on the right,
if you were looking for a serious analysis of the JFK assassination, fuck you.
That's right. Fuck you. On the right is Alan Dulles, who was the preceding CIA director to the one that's CIA director at the time that that JFK is assassinated. Alan Dulles is best known for masterminding the 1953 Iranian coup d'état, for
Operation
the Guatemalan.
Ajax.
That's right, the Guatemalan coup d'état against Jacobora Benz.
Remember that one?
The crime of maybe we should nationalize a little bit of this land that's our country's 80% owned by a fruit company. The Lockheed U2 program, I believe, and MK Ultra. So also probably Operation Gladio.
Dosing a bunch of guys with LSD unwittingly. My favorite detail,
climbing the walls of a South Virginia farmhouse.
My favorite detail, and I found this out researching an episode of Kill James Bond about Agent Cody Banks to Destination London. It became this thing, right? That the special projects team, this largely went through the army, but also the CIA to a certain extent. They were like dosing each other with LSD to the point that it became sort of an occupational hazard at work. Like you go in, you drink some coffee, you feel weird, and you're like, "Oh, you motherfucker! Did you dose me again?"
Because my work were like that.
It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank.
because they felt that like knowing that you were high would like adjust your expectations too much.
It does not.
And so what happened was one guy who was on a U.S. Army special purpose team that was like going around trying to melt people's brains with acid in interrogations in Southeast Asia. Came to believe that he had been unwittingly dosed with LSD and became very paranoid about this. And their solution was, okay, well, we got to actually secretly dose him with LSD so we can compare if he has been or not.
Incredible.
This is a prototype to cops and fentanyl, you know?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Well, and also I did want to add also the other thing here is that Alan Dulles is the mastermind of a certain invasion, the Bay of Pigs invasion, in which a group of Cuban exiles attempted to overthrow our glorious boy, Fidel.
Yes.
And you know, the scion
and they got owned. They got played
so hard because Kennedy wouldn't bring in air support. Supposedly.
Yes, because he wouldn't like escalate this into a shooting war between Soviet air defense advisors and the U.S. Air Force,
which was smart.
All of those like fascist emigres who the CIA armed and trained to do this got owned.
There is a joke about them that like there is a. I mean, obviously, everybody knows that like they're called gusanos on the island, but like there's also a joke in the Hispanic community of which I am a member that like a lot of those Cuban exiles are called the Yotenias because like when they're always like, cuando yo vivía en Cuba, yo tenía, tú sabes, esclavos and things of this nature.
Literally the when we thing from Rhodesia, from the Rhodesia episode.
Which I listened to that episode and went, the yo tenías. But so he was replaced by the guy on the left, John McCone, who was like one of the only guys who was like, maybe the Soviet Union is going to put missiles in Cuba. He was a member of XCOM, which is like this intelligence thing and not like the
aliens.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, in a telegram he sent. Sorry, go ahead.
Coded entirely in assembly, interestingly enough.
God damn it.
JFK like paused with the bullet a half inch away from the back of his head, like out of time units.
97. Yes, 97-degree accuracy. It's still misses.
Come on, Chris Sawyer games don't have bugs like that.
While he was at on his honeymoon, he sent a telegram that was like, "Hey, we should keep our imagination open as to what the Soviet Union is going to do," and so he gets put in place. And he does the same shit. He tries to put together an assassination plot on Rafael Trujillo that was shelved by Kennedy, funds the Hmong insurgency in Southeast Asia, which is devastating, does a coup in Ecuador, a coup in Guyana, and all sorts of other terrible shit.
Everyday bread and butter.
So these are the guys that are in charge of the CIA, and Alan Dulles obviously hates Kennedy because he blames him for the failure of stemming communism in the Americas, and John McCone is like, just one of the dead-eyed freaks in charge of this agency.
Yeah, so. Although it's always kind of like it's always mooted that like if the CIA killed Kennedy, because you see the design that we're going for here, we're looking at the actual suspects, right? If the CIA killed Kennedy, it was because he was going to defund them, or he was going to like take responsibilities away from them. Or he was like in some way antagonistic to the CIA. The insane thing is the Kennedy administration was like the closest the White House had been to the CIA for as long as it has existed.
George H.W. Bush,
yeah, exactly. These were his people; they were his constituency. Okay, fine, he was like Catholic or whatever, but they had been at the same universities. They were very familiar with each other. They were the same skull fucking suit and tie motherfuckers. And I think it's like. It is often advanced without evidence that these guys hated him.
Right.
We're doing the Law and Order thing where we introduce the suspects one at a time, and then
one of them is played by a much more famous character actor, and that's the one who did it.
That's right.
We can also probably like include this definition to expand it to include bits of the U.S. military, the more opaque bits. There was a lot more overlap between them and civilian intelligence than perhaps there is now. People moved relatively freely back and forth, even more so than now. And also the military had a lot more guys, a lot more officers in particular, who really didn't like JFK, either because they thought he was a shit lib, or because they thought he was, because they knew he was a Catholic, any number of these things, including one guy, General Edwin Walker, who had gotten kicked out of the army for distributing anti-communist propaganda to his troops that told them which way to vote. Which
incredible.
You can't do that shit. It's not allowed for you to be doing that shit, and so he was kicked out of the army. But like, there were a lot of guys like that. Walker, by the way, is one of the inspirations for General Ripper in Dr. Strangelove. So that's one sort of suspect profile is the deep state, right? The CIA, the army, all these guys, the government's own killers, sort of turning their guns inward, right?
And George H.W. Bush among them. Just wanted to
George
H.W.
Bush specifically.
George H.W. Bush. This is like it's sort of a Chapo punchline that got out of hand, but he was a CIA agent. At the time, so CIA officer later. He did claim that he doesn't remember where he was the day that JFK was killed, but it was in Texas, which is an insane thing to say. I choose to believe this is one of those coincidences where he was like busy, like sort of butchering some other unconnected dissident, and that's why he can't say. But
he was in the first floor of the Texas Book Depository.
Yeah, on an unrelated thing.
Totally unrelated.
He's like, no, I was in Texas trying to kill RFK.
I was smoking an entire side of brisket.
That's
in a cinder block hut in my backyard.
That's right.
Yeah, he was going to prove the president wrong about his Carolina barbecue opinions.
That's right.
Smoking a whole brisket.
My goddamn.
This is going to be the best barbecue
that
Irish motherfucker's ever had.
This brisket will be mind-blowing, you might say.
He was waiting at the Dallas Trade Mart. Next slide, please.
This brisket is going to burn down the World Trade Center.
We now, because Noah's on this episode, we got to talk about Italians.
Mamma mia!
Mamma mia! It's okay. Second suspect, the mob. That's right. So,
mob.
If you want to hear this theory expressed most artfully, but I would say least plausibly, you can watch The Irishman. It's a feature of this, where it's sort of like everybody in the mob kind of knows that the mob killed Kennedy. And it is true that the federal government had made many dealings with Italian American businessmen of a somewhat illegitimate nature. I mean, that went back since fucking forever, but like they had done it in the Second World War. They continue to do it because the mob had a lot of interest in Cuba, and therefore they had a lot of interest in overthrowing Castro. And there was sort of like a deniable expedient of like being able to use violence. So like the CIA was like talking to, they had each other's phone numbers in terms of...
Well, also the mob, the Italian mafia was specifically in Italy rebuilt by the CIA and the United States government in order to sort of manage post-war Italy. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You think I'm a funny guy? In what way am I funny?
There's also the personal angle, which is JFK's mobster dad paid off the mob to get his son elected, and then when he was elected, because he was a no good piece of shit, he didn't show any respect to the mob, and in fact he tried to prosecute the mob, and he put his brother as attorney general in charge of prosecuting the mob, and that made the mob very nervous. That, I mean, it depends on how much you believe in that sort of like particular corruption, but also how much you believe JFK was like susceptible to the Kennedy thing of having no self-preservation.
Real talk. Can we take a look at this photo of JFK?
He's looking real normal.
Look at my guy's eyes.
I like that. That's what you're focusing on here.
He is no longer on this earth.
Can I briefly explain what the fuck is going on in this?
Please.
Okay, so I believe the guy holding the pasta in his hand.
That is a rectangular shape right there.
That's right.
Or perfect 90-degree angle.
So the guy holding the pasta, I believe, is Alfredo Ilelio, who invented fettuccine Alfredo, which for some reason, so it used to be that you made that like table side. Like it used to be that was the whole
like
thing.
Bananas Foster?
Yeah, you'd prepare it table side and then serve it to somebody. And for some reason, there's like a lot of photos of not this guy like fucking holding the pasta with his fucking bare hands. And
this
then, like,
was the Salt Bay of the fucking 60s.
Yeah, but also like other people. Like I think there's a photo of Douglas Fairbanks holding the pasta in his fucking two hands. And it makes me like it makes me like shiver at all the health code violations going on there. You know what I mean? It's
horrifying.
Disgusting. Also,
differences between
so my thing,
the Salt Bay and this guy's food is actually good.
Yeah, apparently it's good. Like it tasted great, apparently, but like this is just fucked up.
Also, the reason why JFK looks extremely fucked up here is because he so JFK was kind of a baller, right? Like he liked to drink a lot, he liked to fuck a lot. And also, he was permanently fucked up on pain pills because during the war, being a war hero, he had absolutely fucked up his back. There was he was susceptible to, he had like Addison's disease, which is some disease you get by being like inbred or whatever, I don't know. And then on top of that, he had
we are so thoroughly researched.
I really was gonna look at, and then he had the Japanese destroyer Akagi.
It's an adrenal insufficiency. It's an uncommon disorder that occurs when your body doesn't produce enough of certain hormones. In Addison's disease, your adrenal glands located just above your kidneys produce too little cortisol and often too little aldosterone.
Sure.
Yeah. You get it from being Irish.
Yeah, so he had this disease from being Irish.
Let's all settle down, Puerto Rico.
And then the Japanese destroyer Amagiri ran over his back and fucked his entire shit up even more. So as a consequence, he's like wearing a back brace all the time. He has to like do a shitload of operations. He's in a shitload of pain. And it becomes like psychologically linked to him to pussy. Like he is fully like, I have to fuck 2 women a day, otherwise my back will hurt.
You gotta admire the commitment, I guess.
Yeah, I was about to say.
This man, you can tell he comes from a Hollywood dynasty.
As Killer Mike once rapped, good pussy and good marijuana, that be my medicine. And that's very much what it was like with JFK. Not sure about the weed, but pills.
Good pussy and pain pills, that be my medicine.
Got a bit of a got some 3 martini lunches in there too. For good measure.
Yeah, for sure.
Alcohol and pain pills is always a great combination.
Yeah, he didn't know where he fucking was most of the time.
I mean, so Joe Biden also doesn't know where he is most of the fucking time. So maybe like
this is the secret to like good moderate social democracy. Is you just got to get them so fucked up they don't know what they're signing.
There you go.
Exactly. It's common. They're also Catholic, which I don't know if that affects it.
Yeah, it seems mandatory at this point.
So far, yes.
The drunken master style of governance.
That's right. That's a good bit.
So the thing is, right, if I'm JFK, right, and I know that my dad has paid off the mob to get me elected president, I'm not then gonna investigate the mob unless I'm really fucked up on the pain pills.
Yes.
So the question then becomes like, did it happen and JFK just didn't know about it because Joe Sr. wanted to like keep his son's hands clean? Did it just not happen? We don't know. But in this case, we're specifically pointing the finger at Sam Giancana and Santo Trafficante. Those are the mob guys that everybody talks about.
Santo Trafficante.
That's genuinely the dude's fucking name. Like El Drug Trafficanto, yes.
Santo Trafficante, incredible.
Santo Trafficante, yes.
Jesus Christ.
So that's another suspect.
Is that a Mr. Softy truck I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yes. God damn.
My window's open.
That'll do it.
So Giancana was Chicago at that point. Trafficante was Florida, amongst other things. And he was also the mafia's like point man for Cuba. Next slide, please, because we also got to talk about big business.
Foghorn Leghorn.
Industrialists. Yes. Foghorn Leghorn, a shadowy cabal of Texas oilmen. And other miscellaneous right-wing freaks. Wait, it specifically.
I'm just a simple Texas oilman. Silence gunshots going off in the background.
Yeah.
Pay no mind to that. Pay no mind.
Doing this sort of Yosemite Sam thing with a couple of like silenced Walther pistols.
He's the sweetest. I'm not gonna sing this song.
I say, Mr. Kennedy. Please don't tax us oil men.
Mr. Kennedy, we are powerful men, and there will be consequences if you and then audible gunshots again.
now, Mr. Kennedy, we know you like fucking on pain pills, but have you imagined?
To be fair, amongst us,
have you considered the wonders that a properly cooked Texas brisket can do for
in HW loading a Texas brisket into the Dallas Book Depository?
In particular,
stick an entire cow on the 6th floor window.
In particular, we're talking about a guy called H.L. Hunt, Haroldson Lafayette Hunt Jr. This is not a picture of him. This is a picture of Boss Hogg from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Looks like those Kennedy boys have done it again.
H.L. Hunt is considerably weirder looking than this, and he's sort of an early example. He's the richest man in the U.S. at one time. He's deeply conservative, deeply paranoid about communism. He thinks JFK is a secret communist. He's got a shitload of like syndicated radio shows, which is sort of like the Alex Jones or the Father Coughlin in between of their day.
I've just looked him up, and he looks like an adult baby.
He does. He looks like a fancy adult gay baby, and
beautiful eyes.
And he was also like he and all of these guys were deeply involved in various conservative foundations. I believe the Heritage Foundation. I could be wrong about that, but definitely the John Birch Society. If you're not familiar with the John Birch Society, it's named after the first CIA officer to get killed waging war against communism. Who got got domed off by the Chinese border guards in Tibet.
What was coming to him?
He did. And first star on the wall in Langley, I believe. And so the John Birch Society is essentially a bunch of absolute freak shows who believe that communists are fluoridating your water supply in order to make you docile and effeminate, which is true.
I was gonna say
it does make your teeth better, though.
Yeah, that's true.
That was one of our priority resolutions at DSALA's convention. Is to fluoridate the water to make our enemies soft and weak. Join that working group.
Yeah, and the John Birch Society hates JFK, as do all of these little anti-communist organizations. As you know, they think he's a traitor. In fact, if we go back a few slides, there's a little handbill that was being given out in Dallas before he came to visit. Wanted for treason. Here we are. Which is like essentially the far right case against JFK. The left one is just like he's a Catholic, not the left wing one, the left oriented on the slide.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
okay. But yeah, so the beef with JFK here is it'll be very familiar to anyone who lived through the Obama administration, which probably most of our listeners did. I'd be surprised if you hadn't.
Hopes.
One hope, yeah.
If you're listening to this in the far distant future, President Obama was like JFK, except worse in a lot of ways.
I was too young to remember.
Fuck you.
Aren't you 37 years old?
I'm 26. Fuck you.
39. Got it.
I don't remember 9/11. You fuck.
So the beef with JFK is like
we're doing Abby's gag all over again. I see.
Yeah. It's
that's literally
we gotta start recycling bits.
That's literally true. I do not.
I'll just read this handbill into the record here for the audio listeners. So this is two pictures of JFK posed like mugshots. Wanted for treason. This man is wanted for treasonous activities against the United States. Number 1, betraying the Constitution. He is turning the sovereignty of the U.S. over to the communist-controlled United Nations.
Good.
Because the United Nations was sort of like a diplomatic avenue for waging the Cold War for the Kennedy administration. It was becoming a lot more salient in Americans' lives at this point. And so this is where you get the sort of like black helicopters, UN peacekeepers stuff coming from. He is betraying our friends, brackets, Cuba, Katanga, and Portugal, and befriending our enemies, brackets, Russia, Yugoslavia, and Poland. 2, he has been wrong on innumerable issues affecting the security of the US. United Nations, Berlin Wall, missile removal, which is misspelled, Cuba wheat deals, and test ban treaty. So he will negotiate with the USSR. 3, he has been lax in enforcing communist registration laws, which means he won't do the Red Scare anymore.
Boo-hoo.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to go to the police station and register as a communist anymore.
Fucking cry about it.
4, and this is where the saying the quiet part really loud. He has given support and encouragement to the communist-inspired racial riots. Because a huge part, and in fact, arguably the foundational part of this right-wing ideology is racism, and specifically as segregationism, believing that Martin Luther King is a communist agent, a communist sympathizer, And leading us to number 5, he has illegally invaded a sovereign state with federal troops, which is forcibly integrating the Mississippi school system using the National Guard. 6, he has consistently appointed anti-Christians to federal office and upholds the Supreme Court in its anti-Christian rulings. And then 7, just for the real Obama comparison, getting in on some weird sort of personal conspiracy theories, which is he has been caught in fantastic lies to the American people, including personal ones like his previous marriage and divorce.
Or his tan suit.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I'm
all of these
like
guys,
this Kennedy guy.
All of these guys like abound in the South, in Texas. Dallas is sort of like a regional. It's like the regional headquarters of the John Birch Society. It is, as JFK said to his wife the morning before he got killed, nut country. Next slide for our next suspects, because we've gone through all of these guys who are terrified of communism. We now have to talk about communists.
My boy.
Because the thing about communists is that they didn't just exist in these guys' heads. They were real. Communists used to be real. Not anymore, but they did used to exist. And, you know, the KGB existed. It did try to do foreign intelligence. Fidel Castro existed, and he was leader of Cuba. You know, there was an actual Cold War going on here. And
yes, there was.
yes, there was. And one thing that came out of this is that Fidel Castro in particular did not like JFK very much because JFK kept trying to fucking kill him.
Understandable.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Let's all be reasonable here.
Yeah, I mean, he was trying to kill him because he ruled too much and was too good.
A man can take a thing like putting thallium in his boots or trying to kill him with an underwater spear gun kind of personally after the first 100, 200 attempts.
Oh, absolutely.
Or the exploding cigar.
Yes, yeah.
So we're trying to make him go bald.
They were trying to feminize him, if I remember correctly. To force femme him. Which,
that's true. That's literally true.
That's kind of that doesn't fit with making him go bald, though.
Oh, I disagree.
Well, I can't take finasteride because it makes me want to kill myself. So you know, it's much. I am mad about that and resigned to my fate of going bald. But so much respect to the CIA for figuring out a way to do both at once. So just for like background, for people who don't know what the Cuban Revolution is, shame on you, but basically for
what's
Cuba,
the documentary Soy Cuba about it?
I genuinely recommend everybody watch Soy Cuba because it's an incredible film. It has some.
I prefer Chad Cuba myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to make that joke too.
You know, when we did our screening, Alex Wolinetz did a poster for it that was the soy facing guys pointing at the poster for the movie. So shout out to Alex. But so the revolution starts in 53 after the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista, who comes into power and just starts wholesale slaughtering people and selling every last inch of Cuba to American business interests, to the point that there's like a train that goes straight from New York to Havana, like direct, so that you can go party in Havana at your American-owned casinos, and you know, force people into prostitution and you know, gambling shit. It sucks. It's like, imagine if Las Vegas was worse, and also more prone to hurricanes.
Really extensive car float system too, to the point where there's still a lot of American freight train rolling stock rolling around in Cuba to this day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the armored car that was on American rails, I believe, it was all fully integrated with the American rail system, and not as formally as, for example, Puerto Rico has been colonized and integrated into the United States, but like de facto, Cuba couldn't control its own sort of foreign policy until like the 30s, and even then it was a lapdog of the States. So Fidel and, you know, Che and
friends,
and friends lead this insurrection that is wildly successful against Fulgencio Batista, because they start with like 60 something guys and end up winning the war. And this, because they do communism, this immediately like loses a bunch of very powerful people a lot of money, and also strands them in a really hostile situation. So initially, Eisenhower is kind of open to negotiating with Cuba, but like within a year, he's cut off relations. Kennedy does the Bay of Pigs invasion in 61, which was funded and planned by Eisenhower in 60, and then puts an embargo on Cuba. So Cuba then turns to its friend and trading partner, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Alice, can you play the drop?
Fuck yeah. I took it out of rotation after the invasion of Ukraine because it's still the Russian national anthem. But
okay,
yeah, sure.
Well then, is that okay?
Jesus.
Well,
so loud.
Important to note that only the melody is the same.
Yes,
but,
yeah, because the lyrics are too cool.
But yeah, I mean, hasta siempre drop here, but so
I'm getting a little bit of echo on Noah here.
On me?
Okay, so that must be Liam then who's causing the echo.
Oh no.
Good. Honestly, good.
Well, in any case, so this, Cuba was a huge sort of money extractive money sink for the United States, and also for the racialized upper class of Cuba, who are very white and basically own slaves at this time, because Cuba abolished slavery in like 1880, it was the second latest country to abolish slavery in the New World, and basically kept a lot of the same arrangements as it was becoming a sugar economy. So like a bunch of people were sharecropping and working for basically no wages, and a bunch of white people basically lorded it over.
One really funny detail about this is that my favorite class of plantador is the Bacardi family, the rum barons.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Because, the Bacardi family, they essentially had a monopoly on all of rum in Cuba, and they didn't like Batista very much for personal reasons, and so they thought, just to stir shit up, let's throw Fidel Castro some money, and he ends up overthrowing Batista and then kicking them out of the country.
Yeah, do you know where they moved, Alice? Do you know where they moved?
Yeah, to Puerto Rico, right?
That's right, where they have a museum about how much the communists. So
a lifetime example of playing yourself.
Yeah, buy Don Q rum, which is both better, cheaper, and also an actual Puerto Rican rum, as opposed to.
You can also get the state Cuban monopoly, which is Havana Club, except you can't get it in the United States.
Yeah.
Because of the embargo.
You could briefly, though.
Yeah.
What? When?
Yeah, but that was distilled in Puerto Rico, Roz.
Oh, I see.
Great.
They make
wonderful.
a version that's distilled in Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you. To once again to El Comandante. But so anyway, for supporting my people. But yeah, I mean, the gist of this is that there is a community of incredibly fascist exiles, and still is, in Miami, plotting their return.
For sure, and who believe that JFK has betrayed them personally,
right? Because at the same time that JFK is like, yeah, we'll do the embargo, we'll do the, etc., he is also trying to pursue a rapprochement with Fidel after the Cuban Missile Crisis, because it's sort of like a carrot and stick type deal.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I on the one hand, I am gonna kill you. On the other, give me everything I want.
Right. But and like when JFK dies, like Fidel is like, oh, esa es una mala noticia, or whatever. Like, this is bad news, because he's like, oh, that was kind of the last little bit of like rapprochement possible between
and
Cuba
bear
and
in mind, Fidel was not a man who was known for sort of like guarding his feelings this closely on this stuff. Most famously in the context of the Cuban Missile Crisis, when he was asked later about, what would you have done if the missiles had been under Cuban command instead of under Soviet command, he was like, yeah, I would have fired all of them at the United States. Cuba was ready to be a blood sacrifice for world communism to take the United States of America off the world.
Dude, this guy whipped. You gotta like, even if you are like a fascist, you gotta admit he's cool as shit.
Yeah. So this is another pair of suspects, right? It's like anti-Castro Cuban exiles and Castro himself and the KGB, who could potentially like have taken a shot at JFK if they had wanted to. Yeah. Next slide, please, as we go to another suspect.
Another
speaking
baller.
of Foghorn Leghorn, Lyndon Baines Johnson, Vice
America's
President
greatest president
of the United States.
Yeah.
And now he was Vice President of the United States, but he probably wasn't going to be for much longer because the Kennedys hated his ass.
each other.
They could not stand each other.
Master of the Senate, baby.
Yes.
Yeah, he was very good at working the Senate. The Kennedys needed him for that. In a second term, they probably wouldn't have. Kennedy had told people privately that he was going to kick Johnson out and get Mark Sanford, who was governor of, I want to say, Connecticut, as his next vice president. Just generally, it was like a cultural mismatch. If you've ever heard LBJ talk about anything, he is the type of guy to like talk about his asshole and his balls.
Yes.
He once
much like us in that respect.
he once pissed down one of his Secret Service agents' legs because he wouldn't move out of the way of his piss stream.
Was it LBJ that had the car that was also submersible?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he used to prank people. Yeah,
he had a car that was like also like could serve as a boat, and so he would like take like foreign dignitaries out in it and pretend that like the car was
the brakes were they were gonna plummet into a lake or something. Yeah.
I believe They Might Be Giants wrote a song about that.
Also, a guy who like just absolutely kicks ass. Do not look up his foreign policy.
So when Kennedy is killed, Johnson becomes president. He gets dead man shoes sort of promotion. This has led some of your more outre conspiracy theories to be like LBJ had JFK killed. He just sighted him up from behind and had him shot or whatever.
He killed him with Jumbo.
Yeah, which is what he called his penis. Dalton
now,
Jumbo.
the U.S. government would have you believe that the stream of urine impacted Mr. Kennedy, etc.
Next slide, please. As we get to our official suspect, this is a picture that he gave to one of his friends, written in Russian on the back, captioning in Russian, "Hunter of fascists, ha ha ha." And he is holding two newspapers here, The Worker and The Militant, which are ideologically opposed communist publications. One of them's Trotskyist and the other one's Stalinist. And an Italian rifle and a little Smith & Wesson revolver on his hip.
DSA guy. Sorry, I have to say it.
Well, the thing is, right, Lee Harvey Oswald was a weird dude, and they hadn't invented PSL as a repository for weird dudes yet. So he just had to kind of be his own party.
No, he's more of a RevComs guy. This guy is all in on a Vakian thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How do we want to explain Lee Harvey Oswald? He grew up in New York, in sort of like extremely difficult circumstances, joined the Marine Corps to get out of them.
And if you look on the next slide, I think there's a photo of him.
Yeah, we can go to that. He was a radar operator in the Marine Corps, but because of every Marine a rifleman, he still has to rifle qualify, which he does better than average. He makes sharpshooter 1 year and then marksman another, which is like very good to good. It declines a bit, but in general, he's a good shot with an M1 rifle. It might be an M14, whichever. Anyway, he doesn't like the Marines very much. He's like kind of scrawny. He's kind of a manlet. Also, he keeps telling everyone about how cool the Soviet Union is. Like,
that's a bad idea. I wouldn't do that in the Marines.
It's genuinely remarkable how much no one gives a shit. Like his friends nickname him Oswaldskovich because he's like, hey, check out the Soviet Union.
He also like is like severely mentally ill in like 3 different ways. Forget exactly what it was, but like same. But like he genuinely had a lot of like problems like as a child and like in the Marines, just psychological problems. He after a stint in the Marines, he goes to Moscow. He defects. He says he's a communist and wants to renounce his American citizenship, and everybody in Moscow is like, "What the fuck are you talking about?
Why the fuck? Why you wish to move here? Why? You have seen it. It is terrible."
Yeah, especially because they're rebuilding after the war, so it's like everything sucks. But he's like a true believer, and so he and content warning for self-harm here. Slits his own wrists to like stay in the hospital in Moscow, and then gets like an extra year.
Genuinely, they put him in hospital, which reminds me of an old Soviet joke, in fact, which is, the Parsi, the Parsi regional committee secretary comes to a hospital to give a speech, and he introduces some basic principles of Marxism, Leninism, huge applause. And he talks about how the Soviet Union is steadily advancing towards communism, huge applause. Talks about the new Soviet man, huge applause. Except there's one guy who's in the back not clapping, and he finally he takes him aside. It's like, why aren't you clapping? He's like, I'm not crazy, I work here. But this is kind of the vibe. Like, Oswald is genuinely convinced that he can have a better life in the Soviet Union. Every Soviet citizen he talks to thinks he's insane, but he gets his way. He renounces, or he tries to renounce, his U.S. citizenship. And when this also goes into another feature of Oswald's personality, which is kind of like the delusions of grandeur, right? Like, this is kind of a Cold War sideshow. A lot of conspiracy theories are like, how was this allowed to happen? He had to have been CIA to have defected. Nobody really gave a shit. And like, when he went to the US embassy, he told the guy who interviewed him, I used to be a radar operator in the Marines. I will give all the classified information I have to the Soviet Union. You have to take me seriously. And they still didn't. Like, they genuinely were just like, yeah, okay, bye.
They didn't need it. They had like 3 or 4 guys in the UK giving them all the classified information.
Well, exactly. But he just didn't know that much, and he wasn't that stable a guy. The US would just both the US and the USSR found themselves quite bemused by him.
It's funny they just didn't let him renounce his citizenship.
Yeah, that's like,
sure you'll
be back, crawling on your knees. You'll be back.
Exactly.
She makes me very sad.
Even if I were defecting to the Soviet Union, I'd probably just want to keep that U.S. citizenship in my back pocket somewhere. Just in case something goes wrong.
So it's not like people have ever been like unfairly purged or victimized or anything like that.
So room for 2 at the Hotel Lux. So they give finally the USSR is obliged to give Oswald something. So they're like, okay, fine. Here's the deal. We will get you a job at a factory. We'll get you a very nice apartment, like much nicer than you would have had you been born in the Soviet Union. And we will spy on you all the time. Because you have to be some kind of spy, dude. You have to be. You can't just be that crazy. And
get a job at the Moscow Bureau of Design of Dick Sucking.
He goes to Minsk, I think. I want to say.
Comrades of the Moscow Bureau of Dick Sucking, your efforts have been an inspiration.
The dick sucker is the engineer of the human soul.
One of those things, they got a quota of 1 year. They got a quota of kilograms of dicks to suck, and they sucked one very large dick, and then the next year they had a quota of how many dicks to suck, and they sucked millions of very, very small dicks.
The job that they get him a job assembling radios at the Horizon Radio Factory. Because I don't know, this is what it is. Also, the other thing, his Russian is atrocious. He tries to learn it in the Marines, actually, and the Marines are like, oh, that's weird, but okay, we'll let you sit a test for Russian language proficiency. And he's terrible. Barely speaks Russian, can barely make himself understood. They give him a private tutor while he's working in this factory. He's still it gets a little bit better, but he just doesn't really have the aptitude for it. And after a couple of years, he finds that they didn't give him a medal or anything. They didn't give him the thing that any of the weird queer Englishmen got, with it you are now a colonel in the state security services. Please drink yourself to death quietly, kind of thing. He's just a regular ass guy again, and he hates it. He doesn't have any the one thing he complains about is I make all this money, I have nowhere to spend it. It's the Soviet Union. There's not enough fucking entertainment need fulfillment.
Damn, I wish
here.
that were me.
I do like there's a Soviet version of a Kentucky Colonel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been in literal Kentucky too. Yeah. So he also strikes out with women a lot. Like, it's really embarrassing. One of the other women that he tries dating literally says to the Soviet authorities after the fact, yeah, I didn't like him at all. I went out with him because I pitied him, which is a thing that's a thing that you're like supposed to think about yourself. It's not a thing that like other people are really supposed to do to you.
Right. This guy, the problem with Lee Harvey Oswald is talking about him makes me very sad.
Yeah.
Talking about his wife makes me more sad, but
yeah, so he does end up getting married to this woman, Marina Oswald, who he treats atrociously. Like, he is domestically abusive, not really surprisingly, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
That he was raised in an environment and then sort of like in the Marines, totally a man of his time in that respect, but also crazy. They have a kid together, and then Oswald goes back to the US Embassy and is please,
I'm a celebrity, get me out of here.
Yeah, literally, yes. Literally, I gotta be important, right? You've all got to be thinking about me and missing me and stuff. I would like to come back. It's important to note that his defection, it was like sort of like a minor news item. And when he comes back to the United States, because the US just let him back in, another thing that is often sort of held to be like, oh, he must have been CIA. But the US don't really give a shit. They let him back in. He gets off the plane, and he is surprised to see that there is no one waiting to take pictures of him.
Oh, boy.
So, if we want to talk about assassins, the sort of historical profile here is someone who is mediocre in a lot of ways, but because podcasts aren't invented yet, doesn't have a way to channel that into fame, and so keeps going looking for like more and more things. Actually, it's interesting because I read a thing. I read a book called Zero Fail about the Secret Service, which is very interesting. Which talks about how they profile potential assassins, and a lot of it goes to the same place as mass shooters. Like people who want to kill politicians, it tends not to be that ideological. They don't care what party or what politician, and it also seems to be surprisingly like mutable with the desire to kill a lot of people at once. You can like want to kill a lot of people at once. You can want to kill one very high status person, but either way, it's like people are going to remember me. People are going to notice me. People are going to know my name.
Yeah, you never get like some guy who's like, well, I'm going to kill a medium amount of people of medium status.
Yeah, I mean, it's the average. You kill like it's inversely correlated. You either kill one person of very high status.
Yeah.
Or like you take
probably
out
bleep that, please.
Yeah, maybe we should bleep all of this.
You take out the state legislature of like Alabama.
I was thinking that. Yeah.
I think there's actually a really interesting piece that touches on this. It's called Assassins. It's
my favorite musical. Yes,
everybody's got the right to be happy.
So Oswald brings his family back to the United States, and he just kind of like bounces around a bit. He does some like communist or pseudo-communist things. He gives out leaflets for a group for the Fair Play for Cuba committee. He gets into like sort of scuffles with anti-Castro emigres on the street.
Good.
His wife Marina is like, she speaks only Russian. She's totally isolated. She's like raising their kid. There's like this community of Russian emigres who kind of takes them in. They like Marina. They tolerate Oswald, who is a weird guy. He is weirdly hostile to everyone. He can't hold down a job for any length of time. Because it's the 60s, you can just get a job by just walking in and say, give me a job, please. And they only fire you like 5 weeks later when you start like the third fight of that week in the break room.
Or like you set the place on fire or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, this is just sort of like simmering onwards. Next slide, please. We got to talk about. I'm going to put this here because I forgot to put in a different slide for it. But one last suspect here the United States Secret Service.
Interesting.
Yes.
I've heard of these people.
Yeah,
They're not so good at their jobs.
They stopped the counterfeiting, right?
Yeah, and they also
Badly.
they also protect the president of the United States.
Also badly.
Yeah, so JFK and the Secret Service have kind of a weird relationship because he's nicer to them than Eisenhower was, but in a kind of patrician way. He doesn't like having them around him. They're very sort of like, especially at this time, they're very crew cut, sort of like ramrod straight sort of guys. And JFK kind of isn't. Like, he sneaks away from them at one point to go swimming, and this causes sort of like conniptions in the Secret Service headquarters because they're like, if there had been a guy with a gun on that beach, he could have just killed him instantly.
By definition, if he's sneaking away, then no one knows he's there.
Yeah. He like sneaks out of the White House to go and fuck women. He sneaks women into the White House.
Special compartment in the desk, things of this nature.
It's just a weird dude, and he like the image that he's trying to portray of like approachability and of like Camelot and whatever depends on being close to the people, not behind 5 guys in suits
who all look like Chicago aldermen. Yeah.
Yes.
Reminds me of Bill Clinton on his morning jog, where the Secret Service had to try and accommodate that, and
God, I hated that.
Yeah,
it's really funny.
The other thing is the Secret Service is being worked very, very hard at this point. Like they're sort of operating on you maybe get 2 hours of sleep if you're lucky, and that's if you only sleep. Like if you just stand post all day and then go to sleep in a room which, by the way, you're sharing with another agent. They double bunked them in hotels.
Oh Lord,
fuck off.
I'm heavily indebted to Zero Fail for this, but that's if you only did that. But a lot of agents didn't, and so with the schedule, what a lot of agents did was drink. So
naturally,
so the president he's going to Texas to try and shore it up because he needs to win it to be reelected, and a Democrat winning Texas is still plausible at that time. So
can you imagine such a world?
Yes, and they go to Fort Worth first. Fort Worth is uneventful. And some of his agents who are going to go to Dallas with him the next day, in the middle of the night, go and try and find some food because there's no food laid on for them. You basically have to like go and try and scrounge up a sandwich, like in between remaining at like hypervigilance for 18 hours and then sleeping for 2 hours. What they do is they go over to what is described as a beatnik hangout or a San Francisco style coffee house, variously.
That's a slur. That's cool. I'd like to go to WeHo to visit the San Francisco style coffee house, the Abbey.
If you know what I mean.
One for you LA heads out there, you fellow Angelinos listening to this podcast.
This place is called.
Please don't live in LA if you listen to this podcast.
You were just there. You were just here.
But I wasn't there of my own free will.
The Warren Commission called this place a beatnik joint. It's called the Cellar. It does not have a liquor. It does not have a liquor license. However, the owners are very keen to keep useful people on side. These are people who they describe as any attractive woman and any cop. And the Secret Service look extremely cop. So they are giving them free drinks of Everclear and fruit juice. Oh, nice. Wow. That is not a joke.
William special, baby.
This is just Cabo. This is just like one of 4 different bars in WeHo. Like this is just
Thursday night at my house.
I'm interested in that. That sounds good.
There's a witness who remembers at 3:30 in the morning, his Secret Service detail was sitting around the table laughing, and one of them joked they've got the firemen guarding the president over at the hotel.
Wonderful.
Terrific. Absolutely fucking no notes. Terrific work.
After the agents were there, the Cellar's manager said, we got a call from the White House asking us not to say anything about their drinking. We didn't say anything, but those guys were bombed. They were drinking pure Everclear until 5 in the morning.
They were doing 3 shots of bullet bar.
Yeah. So
game recognized game.
So then
Yes.
they go and get maybe like half an hour's sleep, and then they get on Air Force One. Because what you want to do is you want to go from Fort Worth
face down to the carpet. Yeah.
from Fort Worth to Dallas, and you want to fly in because you want the optics of getting off of Air Force One. Dallas is insane at this time, also at all other times before and since.
Fuck the Cowboys, by the way.
Yeah, it's the regional
Don't
headquarters.
even play in your own city. You play
No,
in
we can
fucking
all agree.
Arlington.
Yeah,
We can all agree on that.
They don't really do like any advance work in terms of like buildings overlooking the president because that's not their job.
They're also too busy
whose
having a
job
sort
is
of. Yeah, whose job is
Yeah.
it?
Well, I've the Dallas County Police, sheriff
Oh,
and the Dallas
no.
City Police
Okay.
Department.
I thought you were about to say the Dallas Cowboys, and I was like,
Yeah, they got a wide receiver in every window. Yeah. So yeah.
Man down, Ross.
JFK is not very popular in Dallas, but he's there to mend fences between different factions of the Texas Democrats. The Secret Service are more worried about protests than anything. His UN ambassador, remember all these guys are insane about the UN, Adlai Stevenson, had been had been beaten with a picket sign giving a speech in Dallas a couple of weeks before. And so there's this huge long back and forth between the governor's office, the White House, and the Secret Service about where Kennedy is supposed to go. At one point they want him to go to a university commencement, but the White House vetoes it because they won't give Kennedy an honorary degree, which is very funny. So they end up taking him to a luncheon, because you could still have a luncheon at this point, at the Dallas Trade Mart. I don't know what a trade mart is. I think it might be the same thing as the merchandise mart, but
Yeah,
smaller.
probably.
And the Secret Service are insanely nervous about the trade mart because it's a big open space that has a shitload of catwalks over where the president's going to be speaking.
It does in fact seem to be a furniture showroom complex. I'm just looking at it now. Although this definitely looks like a newer building than what JFK.
Yeah, I think they rebuilt it. Yeah, but
I moved it out to the suburbs, like everything. And Dallas is a suburb, but this is the suburbs of Dallas.
Good luck, 47.
They're very worried about someone like dropping something on the president, throwing something at the president, shooting him with a sniper rifle from the top of the catwalk.
Someone just drops an anvil on JFK.
Yeah. So
someone dressing up as like some sort of like some sort of mascot costume in order to get close to the president in order to knock him out. Yeah.
And
they drop a safe on him, and then the Secret Service has to struggle to open it. He stumbles out, and his teeth fall out, and they make piano pieces.
I was gonna say they drop a piano on him, and then he opens his mouth.
Yeah, there's all those keys.
It's playing Pure Elise.
Yeah, but so they're not so worried about the actual getting there and back. It's
God, it's Lee Harvey Oswald with the steel chair.
Next slide, please. So the idea is you fly in to Love Field and then you drive from the airport in a big parade, which it's good optics again. You see here the president's limousine, SS 100X, with the assemblable sort of bubble top. This is a very special custom car, but like exclusively in a looks way. The president's seat goes up on a hydraulic lift so people can see him. That paint, it's not black, it's blue, but it's a shade of metallic blue specially designed to look crisp in black and white film. And this is a relatively common event. Like presidents used to go in motorcades all the time. It was like part of a whistle-stop tour. You go see the president drive past you, you smile, you wave, you clap, all of this. They want that vibe in Dallas, even though a lot of people in Dallas hate him. Also, this bubble top, this is like a transparent canopy thing that comes in parts. This is publicly referred to as being bulletproof. It isn't.
Nah.
Like at all. It's literally, it's just perspex. But this is sort of a calculated lie. They think it might deter someone from taking a shot at them. But
outstanding work.
It doesn't even matter because
why wouldn't you just make it bulletproof? Like it can't be that much more expensive, can it?
I'm honestly not sure if that was possible at the time.
Yeah, I don't think they had the technology to do that kind of bulletproof glass.
I mean,
at the time.
they kind of still can't now. Like, there's a reason why the the windows on the Beast, the current presidential limo, are so
3.5 inches thick or something.
Yeah.
It's like going to a bank.
Yeah,
the Pope Mobile is entirely flat planes of glass.
Yeah, I think having that curve in there and having like a big sort of like free surface of glass is like probably more dangerous.
There
So
might be a way to do it, but I don't know how.
So you can't curve bulletproof glass? Sorry, not to be like the ignorant one, but
I wouldn't want to try it. No.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't know for certain that you can't, but I could see it being that way that you can.
Okay.
We need to send an email to the Corning Glass Company and ask about it.
If you can answer this, go ahead and do that in the comments. But it doesn't even matter because Kennedy's speechwriter corners the Secret Service, who are, again, off of their 5 a.m. Everclear binge at this point, and is like, hey, because of the optics or whatever, just leave the top just completely open. He needs to be able to like see the people, and the people need to be able to see him. The weather's going to be good.
Yes.
Let's just fucking do it and be legends. And so they published the motorcade route in advance so people know where to be. They plan it at lunchtime so they get a big crowd. It was genuinely a worry that like the president would drive past and no one would give a shit. And they want crowds. And at the Dallas, Texas Schoolbook Depository, where they deposit the school books, Lee Harvey Oswald, who has had a job there for a while, hears that the president's coming to town. He's going to drive past your work really slowly, make a long sort of slow turn, and then drive down a straight road directly underneath one of the windows on the way to the Trade Mart. And he just kind of notes that down for future use, and this is like interesting.
Well, surely this will never come up again. Now, time to go back to depositing school books.
Yes. Next slide, please, as we enter the gun zone.
The gun zone.
Yeah,
right.
Gun zone.
This is a Carcano. It's not a Mannlicher. The
that is technically incorrect to call it a Mannlicher Carcano, as far as I'm aware.
Yes, yeah. The Mannlicher is the like bolt system that the Italians adopted, but this is a Carcano Model 38 infantry carbine, chambered in 6.52 by 52 millimeter, with a telescopic sight. And I think you wrote most of the details here.
So this was originally produced by the Italian army in 1890, and like the original model, which is why it's a gun in Red Dead Redemption 2. It is weirdly good in Red Dead Redemption 2, despite the fact that it's a notably dog shit rifle. As with most Italian things, it looks nice, it looks great, but it functions really poorly. And the thing about it is, because it's such a shitty rifle, the Italians modified the design in 1938, which is why it's Model 38. So this is an infantry carbine that is produced for the Italian army, and basically it's shipped to like the Finns during the Winter War. And the moment that they get their hands on literally anything else, they drop these things in the ground and then start using those.
Although I should say that this is the earlier model, the like larger caliber, the weird caliber. 6.5 is like a not unusual rifle round at this point, and this was in like fucking 7.3 or some shit.
No, but the thing is, they actually moved it because they
escape plan ass caliber.
Yeah.
They originally, if I remember correctly, chambered it in 6.52, then moved it to the bigger caliber,
and then they realized
they
this
moved
shit
it back.
does not work, and then moved it back. Yeah.
So they kept a lot of the design improvements of the Model 38, but like it's still like, you know, ended up being because it was not good at short range, it was not good at long range, and they tried to fix that with the Model 38 and failed. But it also had the special type of ammunition that's pointed. I forget what that's called.
A Spitzer bullet.
A Spitzer ammunition, which they immediately stopped using as well. Because also the Italians, not very successful army-wise. So then after Italy does the thing that they do in every war and switches sides, and then got our guns, and then we ended up with a huge surplus of these. And the United States, so it was basically sold off by the Italian army, and the United States used these to supply, and we'll talk about this in the next slide, used these to supply a lot of insurgency movements across the globe. And also domestically, because these were they were resold after they were, either used or not used in insurgency movements. And Lee Harvey Oswald bought it from the back of the catalog via mail order.
We can see that on the next slide, in fact.
$19.95.
Which is
$193 now.
That's not that much money.
They had a paradise, and they did in terms of rifle prices.
This is the February 1963 on the next slide. The February 1963 issue of American Rifleman magazine.
Oh boy.
It's sort of, this is the if you look on the left-hand column, it's the third rifle down, comes fitted with a telescopic sight. And it's like much of a muchness. It's sort of unremarkable hunting rifle, very cheap.
Also, it's, according to the FBI test that they do with it later, it's pretty accurate. Like, they also have, like, the NRA tests it, and they bring in their master marksman or whatever, and they were able to make 5 out of 6 of them were able to make all the shots that would have domed off JFK.
Yes, yeah. And we see the bullets that it fires in the middle here. Oswald also buys Smith & Wesson 38 Victory revolver.
It's so cute.
He actually pays more for his revolver than he does for his rifle by a lot. He pays like $265 $2022 for this. He uses the name Alec James Hidell for these. He really likes using this fake name. He has like a fake like Fair Play for Cuba party card in his wallet that he has gotten his wife to sign in the name of like Alec Hidell. I think it is Hidell because his wife later tells the Warren Commission that she takes that to be a joke about Fidel Castro.
I thought it was hiding.
I always thought so too, but until I heard Marina Oswald say that she thought it was a Fidel reference, that kind of like made it make sense for me.
Well, we also need to do the bullet thing so that I can put on my conspiracy hat again, which is
please do, yes.
In 1954, the Central Intelligence Agency issued a contract to Western Cartridge Company for 4 million 6.52 times 52 millimeter Carcano rounds, which were intended for anti-communist guerrillas in Greece, I think, or like just all abroad.
Sit on top of a mountain, snipe down at the communists, kind of thing.
Basically, and because these rifles were shit, even though they had a lot of them, there wasn't a lot of use for them, and they were re-imported in 1962. They only ever made 4.
Is that the fucking colonial violence returning to the fucking metropole?
Not in my America.
It's like all of this shit that was like built for Cold War purposes turns out to be insanely cheap.
But they only made 4 lots of this, and it's insanely cheap not only in terms of buying it but also in quality, because they only made 4 lots of them, and they had huge metallurgical defects, so they're very easy to trace. It's like something about like there's no uniformity in the production lot. It's like they're not hardened. Like you can check how much antimony is in each, but basically, so we know that the bullets that he used to kill JFK were from the CIA lot. So much to consider there.
Yeah, but also it's very funny to me that Western Cartridge is like immediately ripping off the CIA as soon as they realize they get a government contract, and they're just like, yeah, we just put any old dog shit into this. And they make about 4 million of these rounds for context. Also, this exposes an interesting gap in the official narrative. The Warren Commission was never able to figure out exactly where Oswald bought this ammunition from. They narrowed it. They narrowed it down to 2 gun stores on the same street, and then both of the owners, which I think you would do, were like, must have been the other guy. I don't recognize this guy, and I'd remember. They also tried to work out where, because they know Oswald practiced with the rifle, and they genuinely went looking around like levees and stuff for spent brass and stuff. Were never able to figure out where he went and like fired off some practice rounds with this, but Marina did this. Interesting. That's one of the sort of like heartbreaking details of this that always stuck with me is Oswald leaves Marina in the middle of the night to go and like fire this rifle off in a field, and she remembers this because she remembers the bus that he takes, which is to Love Field, the airport that JFK would later fly into. And the reason why she remembers that is because she asks Oswald to translate what that means, and he literally renders it like "field of love" in Russian. And then just leaves in the middle of the night, fires a bunch of rifle rounds off in the dark. Also, this cheapness is a feature of Oswald's revolver ammunition, sort of like mixed brass. It's the wrong caliber. Like he gets a 38, and I think he uses like 38. And
so he went to the airport to shoot guns.
Yeah, a thing that you could do back then, because like
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, because they hadn't done the CIA hadn't done 9/11 yet, so you could go ahead.
Yeah. It's amazing what you could do prior to 9/11. That's all I can say. Yeah,
fully.
The airport had a shooting range inside the terminal.
So my university used to have a shooting range on the roof of the main building. The Drexel shooting range. Unfortunately, no longer there.
So Oswald, he begins looking for like some sort of meaning in his life, and we remember Edwin Walker, the general who got fired for the proselytizing.
Yeah, Walker, Texas Ranger. Yeah,
Walker, Texas Ranger is living in Dallas. He's arguably trying to foment a sort of fascist political movement. And, you know, this sticks in Oswald Squirrel as a good communist. And so he takes a shot at him in the middle of the night. The bullet lodges in a window frame, would otherwise have killed Walker, but he's fine. And, you know, it's just sort of a thing. You know, he feels sort of brushed by the wings of something dark, but is otherwise unharmed. And so Oswald keeps this rifle in a bag that he tells people is curtain rods. He gets a lift into work.
Course, the classic.
I just carry these curtain rods around all the time, you know.
Incidentally, one of Marina's Russian emigre friends, a guy called George de Mohrenschildt, one of the most suspicious motherfuckers alive, and therefore a linchpin of a lot of conspiracy theories, jokingly says to Oswald on seeing the rifle, "Hey, it wasn't you that took a shot at General Walker, was it?" To which Oswald kind of laughs. That's not the most like sort of foreshadowing line. The most foreshadowing line is also from Zero Fail, which is a couple of weeks earlier in Buffalo. A Secret Service agent is allowed to bring his family onto a sort of a rope line to shake hands with President Kennedy, and Kennedy says to the Secret Service agent's mother, "Your son's doing a great job." Well, he must be, because nobody's shot me yet.
The irony.
Now it sure would be a shame if I got domed.
Now there's another suspect. Is JFK did it to himself out of a sense of irony.
I was talking to Alice.
Irony and lead poisoned.
The
poisoning, if you will.
Pictures for Sad Children comic where JFK just pulls a revolver on himself. Yeah.
The old Buddy Dwyer.
Yeah. Now I see here.
So Oswald takes his curtain rod package into work. He stops on the steps outside to ask a guy, "Hey, do you know when the president's coming through here?" And the guy says, "Yeah, about 1 p.m. I guess. I don't know." And Oswald's like, "Thanks." Goes up to work in the schoolbook depository. Next slide, please. First, we must ask ourselves.
Oh, we're gonna do phrenology.
What is a human head?
That's where the thinking box is.
It's where the thinking box is, where a lot of sort of like apparatus that makes you is. So the motorcade proceeds onto Houston Street. There's this thing.
It's pronounced Houston, actually.
Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas, baby. It enters a plaza named for one of the founders of the city. I don't remember his first name, Mr. Dealey Plaza. Yes. It takes a long, slow left. It slows right down to a crawl onto Elm Street.
Completely unnecessary, because Main Street just goes straight through.
Are you saying this is some kind of nightmare on Elm Street?
I'm afraid it must be. Yeah,
must be. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like almost stationary at this point. The motorcade it's also not the sort of armored motorcade that you see a president in now. It's the first car is the Dallas chief of police and the Secret Service special agent in charge, and then it's a car full of Secret Service guys, JFK, his wife, the governor of Texas, his wife. Her wife, yeah, noted lesbian John Connolly. A
Jane
car
F. Kennedy.
Yeah, a backup car with some more Secret Service guys, the press, the vice president, some more press. The press get less important as it goes on, and they're all just in regular ass cars. At this point, an insurance salesman named Louis Witt stands on Dealey Plaza with an umbrella, which he intends to open as sort of a weird protest because the umbrella is like associated still with Prime Minister Chamberlain and appeasement, and he's trying to call JFK a political appeaser of communism. So on this nice sunny day, he like opens this umbrella as JFK goes past.
That's genuinely sad.
It's he later said like that of those sort of, like the worst places you could be by coincidence doing the worst thing. That was me. Over on this sort of pergola here, a dressmaker named Abraham Zapruder stands on a concrete plinth and aims his 8mm film camera. And in the Texas Schoolbook Depository, Lee Harvey Oswald, who has made an excuse and has barricaded himself into a kind of sniper nest with schoolbooks, stands at the window with a rifle, and people see him. Like, there are multiple eyewitnesses who are like, hey, there's a guy with a rifle in that window, and none of them go to the cops because they all think he's the Secret Service, despite the fact that he's just wearing a t-shirt. And they're like, oh, cool, it's cool that there's like a marksman like watching over the parade just in case, right?
That was back before people got paranoid about that sort of thing, now now you see guys with guns and you're like, oh shit, there's lots of guys with guns there.
Oh, I might be in danger here.
Yeah, and then back then they're like, hey, that guy's got a gun. I got a gun too. Yeah, I got one too.
Yeah, the watchword at this point was, if you see something, don't say something, because what are you, gay?
No, shut your goddamn mouth, Mark.
So, based on essentially a number of shots happen, the consensus is there are 3 shots. They happen from the Texas Schoolbook Depository down into the presidential limousine. The first one hits JFK in the back, exits through his throat. He goes, "Oh my God, I've been hit," in JFK voice.
Oh my God, I've been hit, but I thought nothing bad ever happened to the Kennedys.
It like goes through him, goes through Governor Connolly, who is sitting in front of him. This is the so-called magic bullet. It's not that magical. Second one misses, hits a curbstone, a fragment of which comes up and like scrapes the cheek of a bystander named James Teague. And then a couple of seconds later, because at this point, the first shot goes off, all the Secret Service guys are just like looking around. None of them really like do anything. And and the driver of JFK's limousine, William Greer, just kind of like stops. He panics a bit and he just stops. He doesn't floor it. I don't think he even hits the brakes. It just like coasts to a stop. It's going like 15 miles an hour maximum. And he just like lets everything go for a second.
Deep healing breath. Deep healing breath.
Yeah. Incidentally, I had to Google because I forgot his name.
We must find our center. Unfortunately, Mr. Kennedy's center is now in the front passenger.
Because
I was about to say the center. The median point of all of Kennedy's bits is now moved outside of most of his body.
William Greer was born in Ireland, and this fact is only relevant for the fact that in Googling his name, the second result sounds sectarian, because IrishCentral.com has written an article called "Did JFK's Irish driver cause his death?" This is
because
sure.
because the centroid of JFK's mass has moved so far, he's now rapidly like glitching in and out. He's making the Gary's mods,
yeah. So it is at this point that JFK becomes neurodivergent. Like a 6.5 millimeter bullet comes down into the back of his head, blows out the side, as you see on this helpful diagram here. At this point, JFK has left the building. Like, he is killed instantly. There is...
I've exited the brain. Have you ever played Psychonauts? It's a little bit like that.
If ever you needed a sort of clear proof of where the sort of like where cognition resides in the body, it is JFK's brain is destroyed instantly.
I always thought cognition resided in the penis.
No, that was LBJ.
Fuck or die, baby.
Incidentally, the frame of this, Zapruder film frame 313. Abraham Zapruder, like by special arrangement, had it removed from like most copies of it because the day after he recorded it, he had a nightmare that he was in Times Square looking at a big marquee that said, "Watch the president's head explode."
I would absolutely go to that. I'm sorry. I would buy tickets.
Yeah.
Because that is literally...
That's somehow still less disturbing than all the NFT ads they have in Times Square.
Yeah.
But that's actually the name of the next Red Scare. That's the name of the next Red Scare live show.
but that's what it shows. It genuinely, like, his brains get all over everything. They explode into sort of a red mist. Some of them end up in his wife's hand. She's trying to, like, put them back in.
Oh God, yeah. Jesus!
Oh, that's genuinely
face Tetris.
That's genuinely not a joke. And at this point, shit begins to kick in. Greer floors it. Clint Hill, who is the first lady's like closest friend in the Secret Service, who is standing on the running boards behind the presidential limo, runs up and tries to like push her back in the limo because she's trying to get out. LBJ's a detail agent throws himself on top of him and like bundles him to the floor. And the motorcade sort of zooms off towards Parkland Hospital. Hill, by the way, he looks in the back seat and then like turns back to the Secret Service chase car and gives them a big thumbs down. So there's not really any debate about what's happening here.
Yeah. Just putting them back together again like Humpty Dumpty. Just
I was also going to say that.
Yeah. Okay. In Dealey Plaza, people are like on the floor. They're running. They're covering their children. A lot of people swarm towards this grassy knoll, which is sort of a problem if you have a conspiracy theory that JFK was shot from the grassy knoll, because pretty much instantly there are a bunch of people there. Where there aren't a bunch of people is the Texas School Book Depository.
But there were a lot of school books.
That's true. In which was concealed a rifle. A Dallas police officer called Marion Baker, one of the motorcycle cops, literally like leaves his bike at the door, sprints up because he thinks he's heard the shots, finds a guy called Roy Truly, who is the superintendent of the building,
the inventor of Truly hard seltzers.
That's right. And they find Oswald a floor below the sniper nest, not out of breath. Like, he literally gets a gun put in his face by a cop less than a minute after he has killed the president. He's not even flushed. He's like startled at worst. Nerves of fucking steel. Oswald and like truly goes, yeah, he works here, and they let him go. He gets himself a Coke from a vending machine and he just walks out. They don't seal off the building or anything. He just leaves.
Hit the bricks.
Outstanding work.
Hit the bricks. I mean, bear in mind, after the president is killed, one of his Secret Service agents comes back to the school book depository to look, and he doesn't have to like identify himself to anyone. He just walks in. So they're not. It's not cordoned or anything.
Not a high security area, I would imagine.
No,
those books don't usually cause you too much trouble.
Yeah. Now it would be, because every textbook costs about $1 million. But
that isn't accurate.
Yeah.
Are they elementary school textbooks though?
I can
Or
genuinely answer this.
textbooks?
In the Warren Commission report, it tells you what books he used to build his sniper nest. It's a set of like early learning cartoons for children that are like making reading fun.
Wow. Once again, reading or communists teaching people to read has killed someone.
Yeah.
Yes.
So JFK is taken to Parkland Hospital. He is fucking dead. They try, but he's dead. There is an interesting interjurisdictional.
My guy doesn't have half his face.
Yeah.
The JFK Superligara.
Yeah.
God damn.
There's an interesting jurisdictional squabble, which we'll get into later. But next slide, please, because we have to talk about killing cops.
Oh boy.
I anticipate some beeps here. So Oswald, he gets on a bus.
Hi, Devin.
the bus is not moving at all because it's bumper to bumper traffic. It's on the radio that like JFK. They haven't announced he's been killed yet, but like he's been shot certainly. So Oswald gets off the bus and walks. He goes back to a rooming house that he had rented ahead of time under the alias O.H. Lee. Grabs his revolver, puts on a jacket, and goes walking. And he ends up in the neighborhood of Elm Creek, which is a sort of reasonably affluent suburb of Dallas, where a cop called J.D. Tippett is on patrol in this car right here. In a great sort of Texas idiom, JD doesn't stand for anything. That's just his name.
Just JD.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon. My great grandfather's name was NB. Like it's supposed
for non-binary.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
They later claimed it was Napoleon Bonaparte, but it says NB on the birth certificate, so I don't know what to tell you.
There's already a pretty good description of Oswald circulating at this point because he's been seen in the window with the rifle, and so Tippett sees him walking, pulls over, talks to him through the window of the car, then gets out and walks around. And in the process of so doing, because he hasn't been like traumatized by all of the officer safety videos of cops getting shot they make cops watch these days, and doesn't just shoot Oswald through the window or whatever you do now.
Surviving edged weapons.
Yeah. He gets out, walks around, and Oswald shoots him like 3 or 4 times in the chest with a revolver.
God, bad move.
Yeah, there are like 19 witnesses who see him do it too.
Very bad move.
Truly, he is panicked, and he could have probably just brazened it out and just been like, "Yeah, I'm just going for a walk." Definitely didn't just kill the president.
And I would have gotten away with it too if I hadn't shot a cop.
Yeah, Oswald fails a speech check and he kills the first cop he sees. Well, second cop he sees.
These days you could just yell fentanyl at the guy in the car, and he would have a panic attack. Remember when the cops were on.
So Oswald takes off running. And obviously a guy running in the street out of breath is suspicious after the president has just been shot, and he is very quickly seen ducking into the Texas Theater without paying, which is showing a movie called War is Hell.
Wow.
So at this point,
just a string of L's for this guy.
Yeah, every cop in Dallas shows up. They bring up the house lights. Oswald tries speech check number 3 as the cops show up, which is, I don't know shit about this. Reach for gun very quickly.
I'm swinging wild.
Yeah, like one cop comes up to him. Oswald punches him in the face and draws his revolver.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, I was about to say.
This does not work because the cop like shrugs it off and punches him really hard in the face. Like,
oh, that's funny.
He just gives him a perfect black eye too. And they grab the gun off of him. Oswald says, "Well, this is it," when he pulls the gun, by the way.
I'm just imagining this is your old-fashioned police work. This is like, I'm imagining this guy looks like Cosgrove from Freakazoid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the kind of cop I'm imagining.
It's been suggested that the cops kick the shit out of him at this point, which is something that seems like it should be true, but I don't think it is. There's actually not a lot of evidence for it.
They kicked the shit out of him with one punch.
Yeah, it genuinely seems more fitting to Oswald's character that he gets hit in the head one time and arrested.
Yeah.
And he's
you cut that out.
You're sort of LA Noir, sort of like he's got his dukes up and he just punches him out like that. Yeah, so Oswald is arrested at this point. Next slide, please. We're going to talk about the aftermath of JFK getting got.
We do.
Hey,
look at this guy.
Yeah, the perpetrator.
Back again.
So this
LBJ's is back.
This is
Hello,
LBJ getting sworn in. There's an interesting jurisdictional squabble here, right? Texas law requires that the victim of a homicide be that has to get certified by the coroner of the county. There usually has to be an autopsy. And so the Dallas County coroner goes to the hospital and is literally stands in the hallway with the sheriff and is like, no, we're not going to let you take the body. There has to be an autopsy here. And the Secret Service guys just muscle their way out. They push past them with their boss's dead ass body and put him in a hearse and book it for the airport. Because killing a president isn't a federal crime at this point. It's purely like this. It is made
they just
one
let you do it. It's not
this.
illegal.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you can do it in that one section of Yellowstone,
Yeah, that's genuinely true. Yeah, it's purely a state offense of murder. And the federal government has no say here, and it assumes some. It's a very Marbury Madison sort of thing where it just is no, this seems right to me. This is how it's going to be.
You have to commit the crime in DC, which is technically not a state, and then you just walk home free.
Mm-hmm.
You commit the crime on a moving Amtrak train.
You're technically in Washington, D.C., actually.
You are technically in Washington, D.C., at least in the cafe car of the Amtrak train.
Commit the crime in Puerto Rico, where the U.S. Constitution does not fully apply.
Mm-hmm. I have another story about LBJ, which is that before they swear him in, his new Secret Service detail find him in the toilet of Air Force One, where he's just on the toilet, not shitting, but on the toilet,
checking his phone, right?
Having a panic attack, going, it's a plot, and they're gonna kill all of us.
I would think that, honestly. I would I would be like, yeah, that is absolutely, man.
Yep.
Yeah, that's and this is the fastest that Air Force One has gotten the fuck out until 9/11. Because they don't know if someone's going to try and take a shot at LBJ, if there's going to be a coup or what the fuck.
Which Air Force One is this? What kind of plane is this?
Oh god damn, that's a good question.
Googling it.
That.
Oh, it looks like it's a 707.
Yeah, it's a VC-137C. So yeah. SAM 26000, Special Air Mission 26000.
That looks like shit, though. So, sorry, very boring interiors. That's really what we need to focus on.
This is how Trump would have reacted to the JFK assassination,
Very boring plane. My plane would have been much better, okay? I would have gotten shot 5 times, not 3 times. It would have taken that many. I wouldn't have died. I'm sorry to him and his beautiful wife.
Terrific outfit.
Yeah. So thus begins the Johnson administration, which would kill your kids in Vietnam.
Also, this leads to the 25th Amendment being passed, because there's a point where JFK is still technically alive, but obviously he's missing his.
Are 1 winter away, and they have their bases loaded.
Oh, congratulations.
Sorry, I was talking to Corinne. I just want you to know that I have Zencaster up in one window and the Phil's game in the other.
That's what they pay.
Who are they playing?
For.
Improving all of my outfits in real life.
That's wonderful.
I've been on outfit watch duty.
Congratulations to you both on your engagement.
Back to the very serious cyber topic of the president being murdered.
Wait, who's already been murdered? Now we have the funny parts about jurisdiction.
JFK's dead, so we're back into LBJ, the greatest president America's ever had.
That's right.
Yeah. So don't worry about that Vietnam stuff.
Wait, also, who are the Phillies playing?
The Cardinals.
Oh, okay, yeah, go Phillies.
All right, for those of you who don't know, it's the NL wildcard game. It's a best of 3 series. Top of the 9th, bases loaded. Phil's down by 1. He just hit Alec Boehm basically in the face. So we got to run. I will let you know how it goes.
Delightful.
Speaking of people getting hit in the head in a particularly strong fashion.
So Oswald has gotten arrested. They're interrogating him at the Dallas County Jail, the Dallas Police Department headquarters. No one takes any notes, which is insane. And yeah, like motherfuckers are in and out of this room.
There are a lot of like me in college.
Yeah, there are a lot of like witness identifications of him. They take some gunshot residue tests that are unreliable and don't work. Mostly Oswald just kind of like lies. And like whenever he's caught in a lie, he just stops answering questions. So they ask him about the rifle, and he's like, "Yeah, it's not my rifle." When they prove it's his rifle to him, he's like, "You know as much about it as I do. I'm not talking about this."
Just a reminder, since it's Shut the Fuck Up Friday.
Yes,
don't talk to cops.
But don't even let yourself don't answer questions in the form "I'm a patsy." Just don't say anything. If
I don't answer
killed the
questions
president
about
of the
my day.
United States, say I don't answer questions about my day.
Because
then you ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to go?"
Yeah.
And if you're being detained, you plead the fifth, and then you call a lawyer.
If he had done that with Tippett, he would be free today.
I have a friend of a friend who swears by what you need to do is on a ride in the cop car, you have to ask the cops about their favorite Billy Joel album.
As you know.
But so then some really sus shit happens. Next slide, please.
They like you if you talk about that.
As they're making
they don't
plans,
like it when you point out their enormous Title IX backlog.
Yeah.
If they're Irish, you ask them what their favorite The Pogues song is,
and it's always Fairy Tale of New York.
It is because you get the slur.
Do you like Dropkick Murphys?
Oh, I love the Dropkick
Murphys.
Yeah. Same, dude. Same.
Just befriend the cops, but don't incriminate yourself.
Don't incriminate yourself. That's
so as they're trying to move Oswald to the county jail. And a gay, dubiously mob-affiliated, somewhat hysterical nightclub owner called Jack Ruby,
called me,
lets himself into the basement of the Dallas Police Department.
Your OPSEC's real bad.
Real bad. Like a couple of unlocked doors. And fucking shoots Lee Harvey Oswald to death on live ass television.
Wow.
That is Dallas Police Captain Will Fritz, average cop name, giving a sort of like reaction for the ages there. And the insane thing about this is all of these cops know who Jack Ruby is because he's always giving free drinks to cops. One of them literally goes, "Jack, you son of a bitch."
Owner of Cabo Cantina, Jack Ruby.
Yeah, and so Ruby claims that his motive is to spare Jacqueline Kennedy from having to go to trial. This is a lie. He later says it's a lie. Some real deep state shit happens when he goes to jail. They put him in for like an hour's discussion with Dr. Jolly West, the CIA's drug man of all drug man, and then he gets like he stops saying anything, goes insane, and gets 19 different cancers.
They made him sit on the uranium chair.
Genuinely, I think so.
Poorly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Judas cradle, but it's made entirely out of plutonium.
Yeah. and Ruby kind of goes out saying, "I know more than I'm saying because it's more than my life's worth to like say why I did it." It's sometimes advanced that like Ruby is also a kind of like vainglorious, slightly hysterical type of dude who wasn't mob affiliated because he couldn't keep a secret and was kind of a joke. And
you can just say the slur, Alice. You can just say
exactly,
the
exactly. And so would have done this because he was boy crazy or whatever. I don't believe this. I have a grand unified theory here. So
he was like, Lee Harvey Oswald is such a twink.
So my grand unified theory, right?
Oh boy,
is
here we go.
Our two big suspects, other than Oswald for killing JFK, are the mob and the CIA, right? We know from Castro what a CIA assassination method looks like, and it's giving someone 19 different kinds of cancer at once. We know from every movie what a mob assassination method looks like, which is walk in, stick a gun in their ribs, and shoot them in front of a room full of cops who all know you. I believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Both the CIA and the mob each thought he was the other one's guy, and each enacted their own cover-up. Because Ruby killing Oswald is pure mob shit. Just like walk in, shoot the guy in the ribs, mob shit. Ruby dying of 19 kinds of cancer at once after going insane, pure CIA shit. I think that's the narrative that makes sense, is both of them believed the other one killed the president and were so desperate to cover it up that they had a different guy killed each time.
See, it'd be funny if they had done another assassin, and then this process continued. And still going on to this day.
Like that movie Tag.
We can't stop it. It's a tradition at this point.
Yeah. Next slide, please.
By that. Yeah.
So we gotta like convince the American public that what we say happened. And this leads to the formation of the Warren Commission, seen here. This is a job that no one wants.
Sort of a big structural investigation.
Phillies tie at 2-2, top of the ninth. 3-2.
Woo! Go Phils!
Yeah. I was literally about to say, where's Elizabeth Warren?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's got Gerald Ford and Alan Dulles in the same room, which is a weird vibe. It's chaired by Earl Warren, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And as I've said in this caption here, there is nothing sinister going on here. This is a product of the federal government attempting to convey the message. This is a trustworthy and reliable group of men. And their goal is to cover shit up, essentially. What you want to do is you want to have one clear official narrative. It's helpful if it's the truth. It doesn't have to be. But we want people to stop asking questions about this and have trust in the government again. What's very helpful to them is that there isn't a conspiracy. Their job is to cover up a conspiracy, and then they just kind of don't find one, essentially. It's sort of further to my point about the 9/11 Commission, right? It is a cover-up in the sense that you are trying to nail down a narrative that stops people asking any embarrassing questions. It's just that it's helpful if you can build that narrative on top of the truth and the evidence, and that's kind of what they do. Oswald goes to work with the rifle. He leans out of the window with the rifle, shoots JFK 3 times, hits him twice, and that's it, really. I mean, there's still like assassination records that are still classified, probably along the lines of what the CIA was doing to monitor Cuban and Soviet consulates in Mexico, where Oswald went, because he tried to fucking defect again. He tried to reverse double defect.
Double secret defection.
Yeah, exactly. And part of what precipitated the assassination is because the Cubans told him, no, you can only harm the revolution. We do not come to Cuba.
Again,
turned out he could harm the revolution outside of Cuba too. So
yeah, that's right. So the Warren Commission is like widely believed to be a cover-up because it is one. Next slide, please. In the 70s, people want to revisit this because no one trusts the government anymore, because after the assassinations of RFK and Martin Luther King, and watching a lot of movies with Robert Redford in them, people start thinking, what if there's shadowy government conspiracies? I found this sexist ad.
Yes.
This is a piece of technology called a dictabelt.
Domestic abuse jokes, or I guess in this case, workplace abuse jokes, never fail to get a laugh.
Yes, thank you, Secretary.
Yes.
So a dictabelt is like it's a plastic belt that records sound, and the Dallas Police Department had some of their officers wearing these, including the motorcycle cops who were in Dealey Plaza. The House Select Committee on Assassinations finds one of these and subjects it to painstaking and also bullshit audio analysis, which establishes that there are between 5 and 7 gunshots, all of which come from the grassy knoll.
Great.
This is later totally discredited.
What is this audio analysis? Is that
It's a guy listens to it.
Yeah, guy listens to it. Yeah.
He'll score again. Fourth tail.
In the same way that well, there's your problem is subjected to a painstaking audio analysis by Devon.
Yes.
The Dictabelt is subjected to a painstaking audio analysis.
I just reading this ad, and this is insane.
Like, calling your secretary your girl.
Your girl won't have to stay after 5. You give the Dictabelt to your girl, and she can do this typing when it's convenient for her. Like,
so get yourself a time master and give your secretary a belt.
Look, this is old fashioned business right here. You know, you get a secretary, you sexually harass her at work. She eventually you get her to go on a date with you, and then you have a loveless marriage later on.
Yeah.
And then you get murder-suicided at some point. You will be murder-suicided at some point.
50-50 on that.
All right, so next slide. 2 hours in, and we finally get to talk about the conspiracy theories. I'm sorry that this took so long. So we can broadly separate out our conspiracy theories into like differences in methodology and differences in motive, right? So like who and how. Whether you think Oswald killed JFK and was like put up to it as part of a larger conspiracy, or whether you think there was a second, third, fourth shooter or whatever. If you believe in a sort of like a conspiracy to motivate or to allow Oswald to be there, that's pretty easy because you can kind of rely on a lot of like innuendo and be like, aren't these guys connected? If you want to put another gunman in Dealey Plaza, that's a lot more difficult, and you can get really crazy with this shit. In particular, the most common location posited for this second gunman is this grassy knoll that everyone's running and looking directly towards after JFK has been shot.
Yes.
And you can kind of like, you can fill your boots with this. You can be like, yeah, it was an ex-Cuban exile. It was a Corsican mafia gunman. It was a time-traveling child from the Umbrella Academy, whatever the fuck.
It was a guy from Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah.
He was mad because some trade deal resulted in the death of his yak.
It was a Guyanese nationalist.
It was a Basque separatist.
Yeah.
It was a Puerto Rican nationalist. Yeah. Just throwing that one in there.
Yeah.
And they did shoot up the U.S. Capitol that one time and killed a
healthy terrorist movement.
Yes.
But the problem,
two Phillies.
Nice. The problem is that it's like basically forensically incontestable that there was a guy who was probably Oswald shooting that rifle from that place because he left his fucking brass there, and so on and so on. So unless your wiggle room is like there was a separate guy or he was like hypnotized or set up or whatever. We do have to talk about the magic bullet theory. Next slide, please.
Wait, how many innings are left?
It's the top of the 9th, Roz. So the
top
Cardinals
of the
are
ninth.
have,
Okay.
Cardinals have one more chance to go.
Oh boy.
I want to try and get this done before the baseball game ends.
Oh, the fans are leaving. Oh, the fans are leaving. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Oh, bye-bye.
Philadelphia.
So this slide here is the entire plot of the movie JFK. I'll save you the time.
The U.S. government will have you believe.
Yeah, so the idea is that the trajectory of this bullet that hits JFK and Connolly, bits of which are still in Connolly in his grave, is like forensically impossible, right? The reason why this is wrong is because Connolly is like sitting below and slightly inboard of Kennedy, so it does make a straight line when you line it up that way. They've assumed that it's a normal car seating plan, and it isn't. The other thing that makes people insane about this is because they think it's a pristine bullet, right? The bullet like rolls out of Connolly onto his stretcher at the hospital. It's like deformed on one side, but it looks okay from one angle, so people think the bullet's basically fine. And people are surprised that this like, jacketed bullet was able to go through two dudes. It's not surprising. That's what rifle rounds do. It's not a hollow point. They do this.
Fix it under right
6-2
nipple.
Phillies.
I'm
gonna keep doing this until the game's over.
Next slide. 7th inning stretch, I guess. So this is my favorite theory. You remember Umbrella Guy, the guy who opened the umbrella to call Kennedy and appeaser?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
We do. Justin, next slide, please.
Oh no, have we lost Justin?
You fall asleep.
Roz.
Oh, I think we actually lost him.
Oh boy, still recording though. Strange.
So how about the Mets, huh?
Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets.
Come on
Step
down and
right
greet.
up and greet the Mets.
No, I don't think he fell asleep because he was talking 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, I think maybe internet.
Maybe a CIA assassin.
Roz? Hi.
Oh, I went to go run to the bathroom because I saw there were 6 slides left, and I was like, maybe I can duck out real quick. Apparently, not. People noticed.
You could not duck out real quick. I was gonna get you to rush through the next one. So yeah, if you remember our appeasement guy with the umbrella,
right.
My favorite theory of all is that guy's umbrella contained a secret flechette gun impregnated with a paralyzing agent that made JFK a sitting duck. He couldn't move because he was paralyzed, and that stopped him from getting out of the way of the rifle.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Why not?
That's not how you put a gun in an umbrella.
This is how the CIA would have killed JFK, right?
Wildly overcomplicated.
That's not how you put a gun in an umbrella.
We have a literal umbrella gun that actually killed someone.
Yeah.
The same method, and it's sensible.
How does it fold up? How does it fold up with the perpendicular thing? This doesn't make sense.
You've identified a very clear theory here.
No, I believe this now.
The gun is parallel with it goes. Oh my god! I don't like this at all.
Is this why it's called Umbrella Academy?
Possibly. Next slide, please. So there's another theory that the Secret Service domed off JFK because a guy fumbled his AR-15 in the chase car behind him and just shot JFK in the back of the head. There's no evidence for it. It sounds smart, but it isn't.
That's a funny conspiracy theory because it's actually a lot more mundane than the mundane explanation.
It is. It's much more plausible to be the result of incompetence, but in this case, I don't think it's the case. And the biggest problem with this is the same as with the 9/11 controlled demolition thing, which is it's basically impossible for anyone to keep anything secret on a long enough timeline. 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. You think the federal government's very good at keeping secrets? It isn't. It's really bad at it, particularly
most of the people. Most of the people in the federal government are alive, is the thing.
Yeah. You can get really into this. One of the actors on Law and Order SVU published a whole book of Kennedy witnesses who died suspiciously, and it's all shit this guy's brother got into a car accident 20 years later or whatever. If the CIA or whoever was hushing this up, they're doing a really good job, or a really bad one, depending. Because certainly they didn't stop anyone from fucking theorizing. The idea that JFK was killed by a shadowy cabal of you name it is hardly unsayable, right? If anything, it's a majority position.
Yeah.
It is an interesting coincidence that most of the people who witnessed this over the next 60 years or so died of various ailments.
Yeah.
The CIA has an assassin, and the assassin's code name is Heart Disease, and it's coming for you.
Yeah, it's weird that all these guys who smoked 70 cigarettes an hour all died. But I want to talk about my favorite conspiracy theory. This is the Mormon photograph. This is the photograph sort of in between shots. JFK's about to get domed off here.
Sorry, did you say the Mormon photograph?
Yeah, more as in Moorman. That's the photographer's surname.
Mormon. Okay, got it.
The Mormon photograph. It's wearing the weird underwear.
Hans Mormon, right before he got hit in the crotch with the football.
Yeah. So I want to talk about one of my favorite conspiracy theories. I want to talk about pareidolia and Badgeman. So some people believe there is a second shooter visible in this photograph. Can you John Madden a second a sniper in this photograph?
Oh wait.
This is now spot the second gunman.
Oh, okay.
He's somewhere, possibly. Maybe. And this is the thing, right? Pareidolia, we love to see patterns and things. We love to like recognize things and see things that are flatly not there and cannot be there. And this is a great example of this. If we go to the next slide, we can see a giant a giant photographic enlargement of some blobs that people think looks like a guy wearing a badge like a cop would do, firing a rifle. We can see someone has colorized this very speculatively in the next slide here.
It's obviously a Mothman.
Mothman.
There he is. There's your cop shooting JFK.
This looks like Ed from Ed, Ed and Eddie.
I was thinking it looks like the guy in looks like the T-1000.
So that white blob is supposed to be like the muzzle flash?
Yeah, that's the idea. It's been theorized that this is like a bottle resting on the fence, but the thing is, it's genuinely like not enough detail to be able to conclude anything whatsoever. And yet people are convinced. People have written books about this supposed guy. It's the JFK assassination theorizing is like a huge industry, and you can make some money off of this. This portion of the podcast has been redacted for security reasons until the year 2089.
That portion of the podcast was where we, as a group, collectively revealed what we know, which is the true killer of JFK. So I hope that made it into into the final recording, because otherwise people are missing out on some stuff.
Yeah.
So Butler did it.
So I got my second to last slide, which is essentially the Zapruder film, JFK gay as hell. Who do we think? After all this, at long last, who are we pointing the finger at? Do we think
Castro.
It was the mob, Castro? You know, it's Castro. You think Castro was like, "Fuck you too"?
Castro, yeah, Castro.
I think it was. I
don't seriously believe it was Castro. I think Castro knew that like JFK was as good as it was gonna get in terms of U.S. Cuba.
Yeah,
like I've always like, gun to my head, believed that it was probably, like I said, I think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone on November 22nd. Also, my dad's birthday, unfortunately. But the mob more or less put it up to him, push him up to it. And the reason, my big reason for believing that is the Jack Ruby thing is just so weird.
It is deeply, deeply weird. That's where I get my theory that like the assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald was 100% a cover up and 100% a conspiracy. But like his assassination of JFK was sort of pure historical accident. Because shit like that happens. Gavrilo Princip stops for a sandwich and the guy he tried to kill drives past him. In much the same way, at some point, someone had to have told Lee Harvey Oswald, a guy who has the personality of a mass shooter and is best understood in those terms, hey, the president's going to drive really slowly by your work. Just FYI.
It's also like, it's not, first of all, the Zapruder film, upon being reanalyzed, that has a time span of about 8.6 seconds between all the shots, which is not what, was originally announced, and that's why JFK was like, he couldn't have made all these shots on this bolt-action rifle in this time. He could have. People have done it. And also JFK basically presents a stationary target from the angle that he's at. So it's like, it's very doable, especially for somebody that's a skilled marksman. I'm still going to go with, I'm going to go with my previous thing about domestic Gladio, in that like it is something that was like allowed to happen. Like I believe, gun to my head, that like the Carcano rifle looming out of the window at me, that the CIA had was fine with not doing anything about this, and through inaction allowed this to happen. But also, like, I am fully convinced by your mob / CIA connection thing there. I think
big cover up fuck up city makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. The Don DeLeo argument in his book Libra is the deep state gets Oswald to scare JFK by like near missing him, and instead Oswald just off his own bat decides, you know what, I'm actually going to just kill him for real.
Well, it's also where did he get why did he have like the CIA ammunition? Where did he get it, etc. I mean, like there's a lot of questions
that doesn't present too much difficulties for me because this shit just comes back around to the Metropole all the time.
Well,
I think
and
it's
that's
just like
I think also the broader takeaway is that like the and as it was with Ustica, that like and this is my running thread here, that the violence that the United States government perpetrates abroad comes back to bite us in the ass domestically.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
The violence that we tried to perpetrate with the Bay of Pigs invasion, with the as literally and the Cuban Missile Crisis, basically came back around to bite us in the ass because that's one of Oswald's motivators. The Greece thing also, like in our attempt to stop the Soviet Union and the global onslaught of communism, to preserve the lives of a few rich assholes, we ended up, doing this to ourselves. And it only benefited those rich assholes because this sets the stage for, the assassination of John F. Kennedy kind of puts a capper on an era of increasing social democracy in the United States. Because LBJ, for all of his virtues and all of his flaws, is just never, the Great Society was kind of a flop, despite how much he was the master of the
in
Senate.
my flop era brackets gets everybody's kids killed in Vietnam.
Gerald Ford outsold the girlies.
Yeah,
but it's like it really, and like a lot of the people that either a lot of the people in the Warren Commission and a lot of people who benefited from this politically end up in positions of power. So it's like, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel that you can sort of deceive yourself with this, right? And it's one of the things that like Americans' trust in government never recovers because it's so unsettling and then by turns seemingly so shady that you get to the sort of the Bill Hicks thing of looking at the Zapruder film. Live Leak wasn't invented yet, so Bill Hicks hadn't seen nearly the number of people who've been shot in the head as I have. And so he's like, oh, you can see his head go back into the left. That means he was shot from in front, from the grassy knoll. And you actually watch the Zapruder film, you can watch like a high definition, stabilized, fucking restored version of it on YouTube anytime you want now. If you actually just watch it, it's a guy getting shot in the back of the head.
We're literally looking at the 3 frames that show him like pitching forward after getting shot.
Yeah.
Like
it's like remarkably, if you just take that for what it is and just like suspend your sort of disbelief for a minute, it is what it looks like, is my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, also this coupled with like the RFK thing and for sure. It that and the assassination of Martin Luther King, the assassination of Malcolm X, which those for sure were orchestrated by the FBI. Like it's been the Martin Luther King's family won a civil suit against the U.S. government for having orchestrated that. So like, I don't even have to say alleged, but
no, but it's we can get into the sort of like psychological underpinnings of conspiracy theories, but those are all very familiar. It seems wrong to us that someone important should just get killed instantly by some nobody. Yeah. I think the thing is that Oswald is laughing at us. I think he'd be very happy. I genuinely think he maybe wanted to start World War III. I think he wanted
6-3 Phillies.
Nice.
Ooh.
Woo!
No, that's bad.
It's very
never mind.
2 on and 2 out.
For some reason, I thought we never mind. I thought it was 5.
But the thing
I
is,
keep hearing noises from upstairs every time there's a run.
But so
just one more fucking out, dude.
Yeah. But so Lee Harvey Oswald would be very happy that all of us know his name.
Right.
And he won.
Absolutely.
And this led to a sort of destruction of the truth that culminates in my final slide. But Justin, you had some thoughts?
Oh, I was going to say I don't know. I still think it's plausible that H.W. Bush's brisket was just that good. It brings me no pleasure to say this. That is, he had such a mind-blowing brisket. Because I too am generally a South Carolina barbecue fan.
My brisket for the brisket.
I generally do follow the mustard philosophy when I'm barbecuing. And yet apparently HW
Fuck you, Noah.
HW has created such a good brisket that it killed the president.
I mean, look, there's a lot of cinder block shacks in Houston where people have been roasting an entire side of beef that you can get brisket that good at.
Yeah, so I think that Lee Harvey Oswald took 2 shots, missed both times. There was a gunman on the grassy knoll. He was a mob guy. He also missed, and just coincidentally, the brisket hit.
Yeah,
like the lower intestine, right at that moment.
Second brisket has hit the flowers.
When you see JFK kind of like hunch forward and like clutch his throat, that's because that's what he's feeling. He's feeling that brisket.
He's feeling that brisket right there.
Even Tom's ain't gonna save you.
Yeah.
It's over. Phillies won it.
Yes.
In a way, the head thing was kind of a mercy. He would have spent the next like day and a half like crouched over a toilet, like. I got one last slide. The decline of like civic trust and like belief in any kind of objective truth culminates, of course, in QAnon, and QAnon love John F. Kennedy, which is fucking insane.
It's so weird.
Well, don't they
That's
like
what
John
I've just
F. Kennedy?
never been able to understand.
No, don't they love John F. Kennedy Jr. though?
They love JFK Jr. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Who, by the way, died because so RFK was shot. Ted Kennedy died of cancer, I want to say.
The CIA shot him with a cancer gun.
That's right. After he killed Mary Jo Kopechne. And JFK Jr. Did the thing that we all love to do, which is to fly a small plane into a gale.
What's with all the fucking Tiffany blue in this photo, by the way? Bizarre.
White women,
White women love to be having conspiracy theories about how JFK Jr. is going to come back, run for president with Trump, and destroy the deep state once and for all.
No
this
offense,
is giving me
white
like
women
true crime vibes. Like, which true crime podcast did these women listen to?
Oh,
Crime junkie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're watching all those TikToks about how like somebody's gonna like put money in your windshield.
Yeah. This has been my feature presentation on why you should believe everything the federal government says at all times. I'm not receiving a cartoonishly large sack of cash at this time.
That's coming later than week.
Yeah,
just back it up. Just in here. Yeah.
All I want to say is you're gonna need to bleep this part out, but I want.
All right. Well, no. Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All of you, thank you for sitting through 2.5 hours of me talking about my little interests.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go start acclimating myself to Texas barbecue, so I can't be assassinated by the
Mithridatic sort of approach. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for having me on. As always, a pleasure. You are all wonderful human beings that I adore. That's the end of my little spiel.
We don't have anything to promote except continue to subscribe to the Patreon. I think all of the live shows are sold out at this point. We sold out one in an hour because people love to hear the official narrative.
We sold out the first one in 2 minutes.
2 minutes, really? Wow.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get a bigger venue next time we do this.
Yeah,
I'm fucking working on it, bud.
Hey, you know a place that has a lot of big venues and also amazing weather?
Los Angeles, California.
Minneapolis, Madison, Wisconsin.
Beautiful Los Angeles, California.
Climate-proof Duluth.
Climate-proof Duluth.
Go.
It's definitely Chicago.
Everybody.
All right, bye all.